America great again.
RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Well, good evening, everyone. And of course, welcome back, my friends. Yes, you know what time it is. It's time for another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. Hope you guys are having a great evening. We are finally getting some of that much-needed rain down here in Florida. At least my neck of the woods. Lisa's at work. She's on her way home here very shortly. So the dogs may make an appearance before that happens. But no, not to worry. We have a lot to discuss. Of course, we are going to be catching up on some updates from stories from yesterday. President Trump, of course, proving once again that this is his game and everybody else is just playing it. We've got announcements on the recent primary runoff that was held yesterday in Georgia, a couple of others throughout the country. Some good news, some lukewarm type news, I guess. Either way, I hope you guys are ready. And if you wouldn't mind, do me a favor, hit that like button. You could also help us out by sharing the show. But most of all, I want you to sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn, because we're going to get into it right after this.
Science proves that a healthy immune system is the body's first defense against the smallest of ailments to the most catastrophic. Coriolus Versicolor is the most sought-after, all-natural supplement for both humans and pets to help boost the immune system. There are over 400 studies worldwide on its effectiveness in humans, including Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and now from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. Together, we can help reverse this terrible tide now plaguing your loved ones and give them the immune-boosting supplements that they need.
3 boys taught me 2 things. Summer is an adventure and bugs are relentless. As an herbalist, I know you don't need harsh chemicals to protect your family. Here at Tamarack Garden, we've got you covered with natural sunscreen, mosquito and tick repellent that's even safe for your pets, a salve to draw out bug bites, and soothing sunburn cream, all made with the power of plants. Because we think summer memories should last longer than the bug bites. Tamarack Garden, protect your family naturally and eat your weeds.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Please do me a favor. Check out the sponsors in the description of this video. My good friends over at Pet Club 24/7, redpillnews.petclub247.com for your Coriolus Versicolor, highest quality products you can get. I take them. Lisa takes them. We give them to the dogs as well. And, of course, my good friends over at Tamarack Garden, tamarackgarden.com. Use the code RP78 and get $10 off your order. I believe it would be an order of $50 or more. But either way, both of these companies are owned by amazing patriots. I know them personally. These are products that are made in America, sourced in America, produced here in America. And, of course, because they are all natural, they are good for your body, mind, and soul. All right, I want to give a big shout out, first of all, to Q Patriot Angel, who says, Happy Q Day, Patriots. Today is the 17th. I'm happy to be catching the ZakPaine live. It feels like forever and a day. Well, I am glad to have you back as well. I also wanted to give a big shout out to somebody who dropped in at the very beginning of the program when I first dropped the show, and they are Well, they were pushed off because there are so many people that have been chatting in the interim. I believe it was Glenn who said that he doesn't usually say anything in the chat because he has a difficult time seeing, but he just wanted to make sure everybody really understands how much he appreciates them, how much he appreciates the interaction with the chat. I wanted to let you know that I appreciate you hanging out with us here, even if it is a new viewer or if you've been here since before I ever showed my face on camera, or I was even Zak Paine. I was just the corruption detector. All right, let us begin. First of all, I'd like to start off with a bit of news coming out of the UK. Now, recently we had spoken about the release of the rape inquiry that was spearheaded by Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain. Rupert Lowe, of course, is an MP in the British Parliament, and he is the leader of the Restore Britain Party and the movement to restore Britain. We've talked about these Asian or Muslim rape gangs, as they are sometimes known, for many, many years, but only through the serious dissection of this report can you get a true understanding of just how deep the corruption goes in the United Kingdom. Now, this report is 219 pages of independent reporting into this grooming Muslim rape gang scandal, and every single page, my friends, is guaranteed to raise your hackles, anger you, and make you ask the question, what in the hell is going on in Britain? And certainly the people who live there are asking the same questions, and it's why you see Restore rising in the polls, and it's why you see Reform also doing the exact same thing, although they've been around a lot longer, and so they have a much larger presence. So what they do in this report is take a look at many, many years, going back to the 1950s. They quite literally accuse the country's political, policing, social services, and legal establishment for allowing the mass sexual abuse of vulnerable British girls to continue for decades. Now, if I had to guess, I would say that the Muslim grooming and rape gang scandal is not the only grooming and rape scandal to plague the shores of the United Kingdom, because as we know, it's not only the people at the bottom that are doing these things, but it's quite often the people at the heights of power that are engaging in this behavior as well. And you don't have to be a Muslim to be a kitty rapist. There are plenty of people who aren't, who do the exact same thing, and they deserve to burn just as completely. They deserve to wear the millstone as well. Now, this was a survivor-led inquiry, and it was penned and edited by Harrison Pitt, Josh Fermi, Charles Downs, and it was all done with the assistance of Sammy Woodhouse, Marlon West, and others, and it was funded by more than 20,000 public donations after ordinary Britons concluded that the official report that had come out from the British government was severely lacking. It failed to deliver on anything of real substance, and it's worth mentioning it actively attempted to cover up the truth, the true nature of just how deep and insidious this problem is in the UK. Now, the content contained within that report represents such a damning indictment against an anti-British ruling class that looked away while vulnerable British girls' lives were destroyed. When you think about a nation like Britain and you think about a scandal of these types of proportions, you may be thinking that maybe thousands of young people were victimized, but certainly you don't imagine that hundreds of thousands were victimized. But that's exactly the case. Now, the report concluded that 87 to 95% of the members of these rape and grooming gangs were, in fact, big shocker, Muslim men. Now, Lowe did not soften his language when presenting the report. He did put out a video on X. We watched that when he had initially announced that it was completed, but he rightfully calls the actions of these men in this report pure, driven, and unfettered evil. The mass rapes of vulnerable, working-class white girls by gangs of primarily Pakistani Muslim men is pure, unfettered evil. Our report outlines in great detail what happened, why it happened, and what we need to do to stop it from happening again. Now, if this isn't already happening here in the United States of America. I submit to you that the sad state of the UK is exactly what the United States has in store for it if we do not reverse the current trends that have plagued our nation for just as long as this one. The mass rape of vulnerable working class girls was by primarily Pakistani Muslim men, and we have plenty of those who have emigrated here to the United States. Now, in response to this report, after Rupert Lowe released it, Elon Musk replied and called for all politicians who turned a blind eye to the rape of Britain to go to prison. Now, considering the fact that the report claims at least, at a minimum, 250,000 young girls were raped as a result of this practice, I can only imagine that that means thousands, if not tens of thousands, of British politicians were aware of exactly what was happening and chose to look the other way. Perhaps it's because they were doing it themselves. Perhaps it's because they did not want to appear racist or prejudiced or discriminatory or something along those lines. But no matter why they looked away, I think that these people deserve to hang for it. Now, these young girls, and this report details 76 years of this practice taking place in the United Kingdom. Organized networks operating throughout, at a minimum, 149 local authority districts. That is representative of nearly 40% of the United Kingdom. Fully almost half of the nation has these rape gangs active, and they've been active throughout these entire time. Those are obviously figures that are going to be challenged by defenders of these people. But the report argues that the full scale of this scandal has been concealed through a variety of means. This goes back to the banality of evil. You know, all evil needs to do to prosper is for good men to do nothing. Well, the reason and the manner in which that they were able to cover it up is because they didn't keep good records. People simply were cowards. They didn't want to speak up when they might have known something about it. They might have intentionally fractured or fragmented or even sabotaged investigations. And, of course, the refusal to record the ethnic, religious, and cultural patterns that were so obvious that the survivors and whistleblowers said over and over and over again were staring these officials in the face. Now, this inquiry details allegations of the most horrific type: drugging, gang rape, trafficking, torture, blackmail through filmed assets, forced pregnancies, saying vulnerable girls were targeted precisely because their abusers believed that no one powerful would care enough to protect them. And again, what does that say about the United Kingdom? Many victims came from care homes, which means that they were orphans or they were in foster care, unstable families, working class communities whose parents were essentially driven to work overtime all of the time, not giving their children the attention that they needed simply so that they could provide a home, put food on the table, buy a couple of pieces of cloth to wrap around their children's necks. There were children, these were the children that were least able to defend themselves and the easiest for the institutions to ignore. They didn't come from good families, so why should the British authorities care about them? Now, according to the report, perpetrators were overwhelmingly men of Muslim background, particularly Pakistani heritage. The inquiry argues this pattern has repeatedly been minimized because officials feared accusations of racism more than they feared the consequences of organized child rape, and certainly more than they cared about the psychological consequences or the physical injuries that these children would be subjected to as a result of being raped by adult Muslim Pakistani men. So that's the central scandal. Not only did these predators prey on vulnerable children for years, but British institutions allegedly knew about it. They failed to intervene, and they chose instead to engage in reputation management and public relations, covering all of it up because they were afraid of being called racist. They were more interested in their own power and political comfort over the safety of the children of Britain. Now, Restore Britain's argument is very clear. The grooming gang scandal was not merely a policing failure, but it was the moral collapse of a globalist establishment that prized multicultural appearances above the lives of British girls. The report says police, social services, health bodies, schools, councils, and politicians all missed, ignored, suppressed, or mishandled the warnings. And in some of these cases, they suggest authorities gave the gangs what amounted to active or passive permission by failing to intervene. So the charge ought to shake the government of the United Kingdom to its foundations. And if the royal family wants to be perceived as having any sort of legitimacy or power, perhaps they could intervene. Certainly, they would be powerful enough to do so. But I think we all know that they're not going to, and we know exactly why. Now, if the report is right, this is not just criminality. It was total institutional surrender and betrayal in plain sight. This inquiry describes the scandal as a rotting stain on our country's history. That phrase reflects the scale of what victims say they endured while officials protected a sordid system. Now, the foreword is written by Rupert Lowe, and it declares that Britain faces an immigration problem. Not a racism problem, it's an immigration problem. You got too many people from another culture who don't mesh and who believe themselves to be superior to those that they are conquering. And by the nature of the British government simply allowing these people to come in and exert their will over the native-born population, they're not wrong. The scandal proves, for those in favor of British ethno-cultural continuity, that mass immigration cannot be separated from questions of law, culture, integration, loyalty, and national survival. And I would suggest the same is true here in the United States of America. You've got a state that imports millions upon millions of people who are foreigners from cultures who are totally alien to Western civilization, and it refuses to enforce any standards. It refuses to try to integrate those people with the British, and they remove criminals or confront hostile subcultures is something that they also just do not do. It is a reckless line of thinking to take. Now, I would suggest, if you guys have the time, go ahead and read this report. And it'll probably help you to understand why we've seen the level of resistance in the United Kingdom that we've seen in recent weeks and in the last few years. And then hold it up against the fact that the British government, rather than going after these Muslim rape gangs, are instead prosecuting British citizens for standing up and saying something about it. I would say that the only future that the UK has is to go all in on Rupert Lowe and Restore. That is the only thing that they can do, because otherwise a civil war is the only thing that makes any sense. All right. Thank you also to Lewis. Beam me up. Shout out to Zach for leading with the grooming gangs in the UK. They can't even talk about it. Yeah, that's exactly why I wanted to do it, because I knew that there were probably a whole bunch of British patriots who would love to be able to speak about this. But they would be arrested if they gave their honest opinions, and just for sharing it online. I mean, who knows? I mean, when we talked about the Sudanese monster who attempted to behead that guy in the street in Ireland, I mean, the authorities and the news were not upset about the Sudanese invader that was stabbing the dude in the eyes and trying to cut his head off. They were upset at Elon Musk for allowing the video to be shared on social media. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. All right. We do have a little bit more information about the tragic crash of the B-2 bomber that we spoke about yesterday. Now, we did learn that this was a joint civilian and military test mission, and 2 of the victims on the crash have been identified out of the 8 who perished on Monday. So, and I think we might actually have a press conference from, no, actually, okay. Well, first of all, I'll get into the decedents. So you have Lieutenant Colonel Miles Middleton and Jeremy Smith. So a military man and a civilian. They were the only 2 identified so far. Miles, unfortunately, left behind a wife and 2 children. That is him right there. He was the test pilot, or one of the test pilots that was on the flight. The Middleton family has set up a GoFundMe to cover immediate expenses. Pam Middleton and her 2 children are facing an unimaginable loss after Pam's husband, Miles, was tragically killed in the crash of a B-52 at Edwards Air Force Base. As a family friend, I've witnessed firsthand the strength and resilience Pam has shown, but the road ahead is filled with uncertainty and challenges. With Miles gone, Pam is now responsible for supporting her family on her own. The funds raised will help cover immediate expenses and bills, providing some relief as they adjust to this new reality. In addition to daily living costs, as a community, we hope to raise funds for the children's college so that they can look forward to a brighter future, despite the heartbreak they are experiencing. Your support will help ease the financial burden and give Pam and her kids a sense of hope and security. Now, as far as Jeremy Smith, he also left behind a wife and 2 sons. First, let's take a look at this.
This pocket-sized pressure tool is so powerful, it strips a decade of grime off concrete in 30 seconds.
All right, so I did watch about a 6-minute press conference, and I believe it was Deborah that sent me that press conference after I talked about this yesterday. It was from some of the men on base, and that's where they gave the information that this was a joint civilian military test mission, and that the plane had essentially crashed almost immediately after takeoff. The entirety of the crash happened on Edwards Air Force Base property, and that was really it. God, it's like there's nothing left. What in the hell happened? I mean, like I said yesterday, it's a little coincidental that this happened and the Russian nuclear jet went down both in the same day, right after the announcement of the Memorandum of Understanding was announced between the United States and Iran. When you know about exploding pagers, and of course, I'm sure you remember that video I played of the Mossad agent being interviewed a couple of years ago, where he said, "We are literally everywhere. We can get to you no matter what." It is not beyond the realm of possibility that this was some sort of a message to the 2 nations that are most dangerous to the global deep state. And those 2 nations coming together and making normalized relations, which is what we are essentially on the cusp of now. Now that the Iran conflict is over, the only thing for the administration to focus on in terms of global peace is going to be the war between Ukraine and Russia. Now, here is a report from ABC. I don't know if there's going to be anything extra in here, but I figured we might as well just check it out.
This evening, we have new reporting here after that deadly crash of that B-52 bomber at Edwards Air Force Base outside Los Angeles, killing 8, including multiple airmen. Tonight, there's news that there might have been a sudden turn right after takeoff and then the plunge. Here's Trevor Ault.
We're learning new details tonight about that fiery crash of a B-52 bomber.
I don't know. Somebody says could be a fake story. I mean, that looks like a real fire and a real explosion to me. So I don't know what would be fake about it.
A test mission at Edwards Air Base outside Los Angeles. Officials say all 8 people on board have died. The crew composed of airmen, government civilians, and 2 Boeing contractors.
At this point, we don't have any indication as to what the cause was of this.
The mission was testing a new radar system, part of an effort to modernize the aircraft first built in the 50s and capable of carrying nuclear weapons. And the investigation will look into whether flight data seen by the AP shows just after takeoff, the B-52 Stratofortress took a sharp right turn, nearly rotating 180 degrees before something caused it to plunge to the ground nearly a mile a minute, 10 times faster than the plane normally descends.
It can't be real.
And ABC affiliate KERO interviewing Lauren Smith, who says her husband Jeremy was on that plane.
Okay, there we go. We have a third confirmation.
Jeremy leaves behind 2 sons.
He is the type of person that he would take his shirt off his back for you, even if he did not know you. He was our rock.
And David, a lot of the information surrounding the B-52 and this radar test is classified.
And that's the other thing. That's what I was considering when this happened. How much are they actually going to be able to tell us? Because, of course, like you said, it's classified. Much of it is not publicly known. Just want to check out the GoFundMe real quick. Okay, so far, the Middleton family has raised $121,000. And then it looks like there is there another GoFundMe? No, that is the only GoFundMe that's listed. All right, so pray for them, pray for their families, and pray that we learn exactly what happened very soon. Darla over on Pilled says, hello, Zach and Lisa. Question is, how do you have a civil war when you have no weapons? British turned them over. They did. However, if you know anything about the Irish, you know that they are very resourceful. And believe me, there are still guns. There are still guns in certain areas of the country. But there's also ingenuity and other things that could be used. All right, so here is President Trump just commenting on the likelihood of the Iran deal actually getting done.
You know, deals are amazing. I've done them all my life. I've gone into deals that were 100% and they don't happen. I've gone into deals that there was no chance of getting them done, and it happens, and they happen easily. So you never know with deals, do you? But you're going to find out pretty soon. I think it'll be done. They want to sign. They want to get back to a normal life. You know, we hit them very hard. Don't forget, you know, people talk about when this started. This didn't start 3-4 months ago. This started years ago when I took out Soleimani. That was a big event. There are those that say it was the biggest event in the Middle East in 50 years. So we took him out, and they became a much different country. And then I terminated the JCPOA, that's Barack Hussein Obama's horrible deal, that gave them a nuclear weapon. And I terminated it, and I stopped it. And then I stopped it a second time with the B-2 bombers. And
Yes, I believe Iran is going to sign the peace deal. I'm not worried about that at all.
These are all major events in the history of the world, in my opinion, because it prevented them from having a nuclear weapon. And now we're going to do it again, and we're going to see how it works out. So this is a memorandum of understanding, but it's a very strong one. This isn't just like a 2-paragraph. This is a long, pretty detailed memorandum that goes into a regular contract. I would think they would do it. If they don't, then that's okay. We'll have to start the process again. And we don't lose. We have the greatest military in the world. We had the greatest blockade. The naval blockade was 100% effective. And again, they have no Navy, they have no Air Force, all bombed out. I don't want to say the leaders, but first level of leader, gone. Second level of leaders, gone. Some of the third level of leaders, gone. And they want to make a deal. They are so ready to make a deal. Yeah.
Now, not only because of what President Trump laid out there, I mean, just the utter devastation of their military and their ability to even continue to wage war, but also because the Iranian foreign minister had publicly said yesterday, or I believe Monday after the announcement of the memorandum, that yes, hostilities have ended entirely with the United States, and we are moving full bore ahead in terms of this peace deal. And the peace deal is going to be great for them, and it's going to be great for all of the other nations in the Middle East, with perhaps, save for Israel. Now, Alex Brusewitz is a top Trump aide, and as we were talking about yesterday, quite a few people from the Israel First lobby have been very, very upset about this deal. And Alex responded to that and he directed his ire specifically at Brad Parscale, at Mark Levine, and at a bunch of other Never Trump critics because they were attacking the president over this peace deal. Now, he's also the CEO of X Strategies LLC, and he has accused these hawkish political operatives of spreading deliberate misinformation, very similar to what we were talking about yesterday. These people want nothing more than for President Trump to fail, and moreover, for this deal to fail. There is a deal that is in place, and these people are walking around saying that the United States taxpayer is going to be funding the reconstruction of Iran. The conditional restriction and investment that is tied to the deal, that is not going to be coming from the United States. That will be coming from other Middle Eastern nations, including Qatar. And they are completely ignoring the massive concessions that Iran must make in order to gain access to that money. That includes the full disarmament of their nuclear program. President Trump said that yesterday. We've got Space Force satellites trained on every single door in Iran, and they also can no longer support terrorist proxies, and there have to be meaningful internal reforms aimed at setting free the people of Iran. So for the people who hate Trump, whether they're conservative or liberal or they're just deep state hacks, they're going to see at the end of the day that this is going to be good. And the people of Iran that I've heard from are all in favor of this because this is the closest they've gotten to being able to live a free life since the Islamic revolution took place. So this memorandum of understanding was done in concert with President Trump, J.D. Vance, and their team that have been negotiating with Pakistan and with the Iranian proxies, and it will fully end this conflict as it has. It's opened up the Strait of Hormuz, and most importantly, as many nations would like to see, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. Now, again, these critics, they have very strong ties to Israel. They've got very strong ties to AIPAC. They have been hyper-focused on spreading these reports of this $300 billion reconstructing an investment fund as somehow coming from the people of the United States of America. But as we've shown with J.D. Vance doing his press tour, none of that money is going to be coming from us. That is going to be coming from the Gulf states. It's going to be coming from private investors. It's not going to be American taxpayers. President Trump has also commented about it and said that it was fake news. Now, let me show you just a couple of the back and forths that Brucewitz had with some people. Wow. Another Salem media personality is spreading a hoax about this deal. Todd Starnes, I like you, but you are spreading misinformation. Brad Parscale, you are the chief strategy officer of Salem. Can you tell me why so many of your personalities are opposing President Trump's deal and spreading lies about it? Well, the one thing that I can tell you is that Salem Media has, maybe it's their parent company. Their parent company has filled out a FARA form to be a representative of the nation of Israel. They are representing a foreign nation. So when you're watching anything on Salem Media, you are automatically going to get this pro-Israel slant on it. And so good, calling them out. That's good to see. Brad Parscale responded, and he deleted it because it got flamed. Guess you don't know how the FCC works. You can't tell hosts what to say. Nobody's telling them what to say, but just kind of calling them out for posting fake news. So are you claiming I'm orchestrating anti-Vance or anti-administration attacks? Then say it plainly. Stop hiding. Be careful behind careful language designed to protect yourself. I'm sure JD will find this interesting, considering his team asked our PAC for $1 million donation this year, and our PAC was one of the first to step up. So is that why what you're doing now, openly attacking JD Vance donors? How disingenuous. This is so disgusting to see this shit play out. And if you won't even say it directly, then tell everyone exactly how much you believe your own lies. I actually want to thank you for bringing this up. I don't know who's pissed in your Cheerios this morning, but what you're looking at was an original draft, not what happened. We never executed that plan. We never paid hosts or influencers to say anything. Nada. That's the beauty of FARA. The receipts exist. He must be talking about the Foreign Agent Registration Act filing where Salem Media signed up to be an agent of Israel. Here we go. Thank you for your response, though I thought it was definitely written by AI. You're now claiming you don't tell Salem personalities what to say, but below, here's a screenshot of your FARA registration where we can actually see what they list. According to the filing, you receive millions of dollars each month from the nation of Israel to integrate messaging into Salem media properties. Is that correct? Integration of narrative messaging into Salem Media Network properties and aligned distribution channels. Paid media campaigns delivering a minimum of 50 million impressions per month with a target CPM under USD $2 across the combined budget pool. Wow, it sure looks like they are actually just posting on behalf of Israeli PR, on behalf of Mossad PR. That's pretty interesting. Brucewitz also went after Mark Levine, or Levin, or Levin, however you say his name. Why does Mark Levin Show continue to lie about the $300 billion fund after both President Trump and J.D. Vance debunked this hoax multiple times? Levine and Dan Bilzerian are now echoing the same line. Mark is now a member of the woke right, which is hilarious because that's the term that was founded by Mark Levine, going after people who were simply questioning how much influence Israel has in the United States. If you are a conservative and you question the influence that a foreign nation has on your country, Israel or otherwise, then you are suddenly a member of the woke right. But now Mark Levine is doing the exact same thing. Anyways, it's never ending. And I'd like to also show you right here, President Trump making another statement about Netanyahu and Israel. And remember, I told you yesterday that the fact of the matter is, and what people who have called President Trump a shill for Israel, what they always fail to recognize is that relationships are about management of personalities. And there are many times in politics, especially, and especially when you're the president of the strongest and most powerful world on the nation on the face of the earth, that you might have to manage certain personalities in a certain way to make them feel safe, make them feel as if they're more important than they actually are. And then there comes a time when you have to tell them exactly where the hell they stand.
But it's been an amazing partnership. But he will say, we're the big partner, and he's the very small partner, and that's true. So, but
Israel is the very small partner. The United States is the very big partner. Big brother, little brother. That's the way that it goes. But as I said yesterday, what comes after Bibi is going to be even more hardline than him. These are people who are going to have no problem going against Trump and also trying to flex their muscle as much as they can. Here is a clip of Israeli Minister Ben-Gvir. He's the same guy who had to cancel his trip to the United States that we talked about yesterday because the State Department wanted to get his biometrics. They wanted to get the iris scan and the fingerprints, and they wanted to get a copy of his passport. So rather than subjecting himself to that violation, he just decided not to come to the United States. Now, here in this clip, he says, we cannot stop destroying houses in southern Lebanon. We cannot stop, period. What did President Trump say yesterday? Stop blowing up apartment buildings of innocent people in Lebanon. And it's not just Muslims that are living there. It's Christians that live there. In fact, it's overwhelmingly Christians that live in the southern portion of Lebanon. We must continue. We cannot allow the population of southern Lebanon to return. We must continue to control the territory, even if Trump disagrees. Yeah, he is a total psycho, but this is to be expected. This plays directly into the Greater Israel Project. Now, I believe this is in Hebrew, but let me go ahead and play it. Yeah, it's in Hebrew. So I just read the translation. That's what's important. Because people who are supporters of Israel, they will, the Greater Israel Project doesn't exist. We've got the documents. We've got the public statements of Israeli officials. I mean, what else can you divine from this when Israel is trying to remove the entire population of southern Lebanon and then occupy it? They are trying to gain control of that landmass so that they can expand their own borders. And they've said before, they believe that the entirety of the Middle East effectively should be part of the nation of Israel. And the only way that they could achieve that is through the actions of going to war, blowing people up, removing them from the area, which is why they've been so keen on doing that for many, many years. Now, here is President Trump once again from the G7 sending a message to Israel once again on Hezbollah and how to deal with them.
Hezbollah. I'm not saying they shouldn't protect themselves. I'm saying when two drones are shot into the desert and drop harmlessly, you don't have to knock down buildings in Beirut. They could behave better. And frankly, they could do a better job. I I love them as a partner. They were terrific, but they could do a much better job with Hezbollah. On that, I don't think they're doing well. And I feel very bad for Lebanon. Lebanon's been, you know, it was a great culture. It was a great, they had the professors, the doctors, Hezbollah.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, what President Trump is seeking to do is, as I've said so many times, create a world where it's more profitable to be friends with each other than it is to kill each other. And it's very unfortunate, but Israel does not share that same goal. And that's why they're so upset about the deal, because the deal that's being made is not kowtowing to the goals of Israel. Now, here he is one more time talking about the situation in a little bit more depth.
And in some cases, women, mostly men, walking around without legs, without arms, with a face that's been blown to smithereens. Soleimani, 95%, 96.2 they say or something, 95%. That was Soleimani did it. Happened to come from Iran, and I blew him up. You remember that? I blew him up in the Valley of Death. He got off his plane, and we followed him. And in all fairness, because they've been wonderful to me, Israel, but they didn't want to do that attack. They were all set the night before the attack. They informed me they didn't want to do it, so I had to make it.
So do you remember this? Do you remember when, and this is, I always think about this, when the Israel First crowd tells the United States that, oh, you know, we are such great allies, we've got to share intelligence, we do all of these great things for each other. This was a very important mission to take out Soleimani. And Israel, Bibi, pulled out at the last second, which meant that the United States had to do it on their own, without any additional intelligence from the region, without any additional military assistance. It was just like, oh, okay, you know, we'll see you later. It was a great idea, but we're just not going to take part. And then immediately after President Trump does this, Bibi takes credit for it. It was a total slime move.
I made the decision to do it. But it was a joint venture, as we say in the real estate business. That was a joint venture between Israel and us. We studied it for a month. We knew what plane he was going to be on almost a month before. He only traveled on commercial airliners, big ones with lots of people, because he knew we wouldn't shoot him down. He's very smart. But we knew he was going to be on that plane. We followed him. And then Israel informed me that they won't do it. And I had to make a decision. I had some very good generals, and not the ones you see on television, very good. And I want to thank also Pete Hegseth and General Raisin Kane, who's phenomenal. Okay, these guys are phenomenal. They can't be better.
Another piece of fake news that they're trying to push is that President Trump is preparing to fire Pete Hegseth and a bunch of other people from the administration who are not happy about the memorandum of understanding. And, you know, the one thing that I hear from Trump over and over again is what a good job these people that are allegedly going to be fired are doing. That includes Tulsi Gabbard, who is leaving the administration through no fault of her own and certainly no fault of President Trump. But he does continue to talk about the now seemingly difficult relationship that we actually have with Israel. Nothing has changed. This has been the status quo for the longest time. The only thing that's changed is President Trump's public comments about it. And he's made a very distinct decision to do this. And I think that it's obviously because we have achieved our mission in Iran. And we are now essentially getting to the point where Middle East will be in peace. And the only way that Middle East will not be at peace is if Israel makes a decision, a very bad one, to step out of line and not be a good neighbor.
But I had some good generals, and I said to them, well, if Israel's not going to do it, we're all prepared. Do we do it? Do you like doing it or not? He said, sure. If you want to do it, we can do it. How well? We'll do it just as well or better. We can do it ourselves. We don't need anybody. So we took out Soleimani. One of the biggest events to happen in the Middle East, maybe ever, but they say 50 years, they say 100 years. I was with the Prime Minister of Pakistan. He said it's maybe the biggest event that has ever taken place. Nobody could believe it. So that's when it started. It didn't start like 3 or 4 or 5 weeks ago.
Yeah, this has been ongoing for quite some time. So What you see right now in front of you is part of a long-running play that has been taking place in the background. All right, you guys, I need to get an energy drink real quick. I forgot to grab one before the show started, so give me just 1 second. I'll be right back. All right. Yeah, it may not be a realistic portrait, but it's all just done with AI. So I had to deal with what it gave me. All right. Now, we have some big updates on the attempted UFC 250 terror attack that was scheduled but thwarted over the weekend. And what I have here first for you is the DOJ release that came out yesterday from the Public Affairs Department, where they go into the identities and some of the background details on the people that they had arrested yesterday. One other individual, I believe, has been arrested. So we have Tyson Proper. He was 19 of Danville, Ohio. We talked about him. We also have Brian Omar Roa, 24 of Calamasa, California. We have Michael Allen Thomas, 32 of Pinnon Hills, California. Daniel K. Eskridge, 32 of Kidder, Missouri. And Abraham Hermosia Alvarez, 31 of Omaha, Nebraska. Alvarez was, honey, are you home? I just got an energy drink, so don't worry about it. Alvarez appears to be the ringleader of this. And so they were the ones who were putting together this plan. Now, Tyson Proper, he's the one whose mother actually called the local police. And right here, he had said that members of the group wanted to participate in the attack and began communicating with each other around March. More serious members of the group, including Proper, moved their communications over to Signal. They planned to fly these small drones with explosives to detonate on the north side of the UFC arena, forcing high-value targets to evacuate the premises. And then they were going to act as snipers and shoot the people who were running out before... I got it. Thank you, babe. All right, and they were planning to rendezvous in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Now, here are some screenshots which show maps and the positions that they were going to be putting these teams in. And then these are from Proper's phone, and there are some others. That was the gun that we saw yesterday that he had recently purchased with his graduation money. Then we have Brian Roa. According to the complaint, law enforcement executed the search warrant at Roa's residence and vehicle, where they seized a rifle, a handgun, a tactical belt, ammunition, a magazine, two-way radio, and an infrared laser target pointer. Now, a search of Roa's phone allegedly found messages in the same group with Thomas Proper and others discussing this attack and the plan to use drones and to set up as snipers. Now, here we have what looks like maybe an Instagram post of them doing some kind of tactical training in Mexico. Then we also have Michael Thomas. Thomas participated in the same group chat. On June 7th, he allegedly wrote, $1,300 gets us the drones and the charges. Yes, we should all pitch in. We need it ASAP. Then in another group chat, Thomas, using a pseudonym, allegedly described tiers of operators within their anti-government group, with Tier 1 operators on the ground, Tier 2 being drivers and drone operators, Tier 3 being logistical suppliers, and Tier 4 being social media influencers. Tier 1 status is not something to take lightly, he wrote. We will all make sure they have all the Tier 2 support that we can provide. We will try to break them out of jail if we need to. In the same group chats, Thomas discussed meeting with Roa in person in Southern California in order to conduct marksman training, and reflected the group needed to train for guerrilla-style warfare. And at his home, they discovered a rifle, a 30-round magazine, and 180 rounds of ammunition and a pistol. Then we have Daniel Eskridge. Eskridge was charged with conspiracy to commit murder on White House grounds, and according to the affidavit in the Western District of Missouri, they found communications with him on Propper's phone. They used the same electronic chats and encrypted chats. They had discussed assassinating several U.S. senators, representatives, and prominent business executives. Members of the group targeted some legislators based on the group's perceived belief that those legislators accepted money from pro-Israel lobbies. Now, when discussing potential targets, Eskridge indicated that the target was big and someone a majority of the country knows. And in the discussion, power grids were also identified as potential targets. They found tactical equipment, rifle, helmet, ballistic vest, all of this stuff at his home. And he shared this apparently on social media, did quite a bit of sharing on social media. Eskridge appears to have been a Trump supporter, voted for Trump in 2024, and then sometime between then and now decided that Trump wasn't doing a good enough job, and the only thing that you could do would be to go kill everybody, which includes innocent civilians. According to the affidavit in a separate group chat, there was a conversation in early June where Eskridge and some of the other chat discussed their plan to attack the U.S. Freedom event, and it was Eskridge who said that the group should obtain that $1,300 in U.S. currency, and they needed 5 teams of 3 each, consisting of 1 sniper, 1 Tier 1 operator as support and lookout, and 1 drone operator. Eskridge said the money would provide them with the funding to purchase drones and charges, and encouraged everybody to chip in. And then here's some more tactical gear they recovered from his home. Abraham Alvarez, he is from Nebraska, and he is the one who used the name Shepard in the encrypted chat. And the FBI assessed that Alvarez was responsible for planning, organizing, and directing this attack. And based on these conversations that were had with Shepard, he said, "This is the best action I see. Position your teams in the purple dots, counter sniper, and drones. Long range, circled area, great shot, easy out into the river." Shepard also allegedly posted other messages, including replying to others about making drones and explosives, as many and as deadly as we can get. He was actually working on drones, and he had 1 drone and was working on making more. Now, they also allege that Shepard provided a picture and directions for a safe zone at an old church in Nebraska. He instructed the other members to take back roads or the river down to the pickup location. And then in that same evening, he also provided locations in the area for drone launch points and sniper positions. So now that we have that, let's take a look at some of the pictures. Oh, actually, here, the FBI, well, this is actually from yesterday. It had nothing to do with it. I forgot to take that out. All right. What is most impressive about this plot is that the man, Abraham Alvarez, who is now being called the ringleader, was not a U.S. citizen. Yeah, that's right. This guy was an illegal alien living in the United States of America. So Abraham Alvarez, who went by the name Shepard, was the one who was responsible for planning all of these things. According to Nebraska Public Media, Alvarez consented to a consular notification during his initial trial appearance on Tuesday. Now, while his immigration status and country of origin are unclear, a consular notification is required when foreign nationals are arrested to notify the embassy or consulate of the suspect's home country. Now, we won't hear from Alvarez again until June 24th, because that's when he has a preliminary hearing. The FBI, of course, has done all of this as a result of the call from Tyson Propper's mom. Thank God she called in. But the suspect, Daniel Eskridge, also appears to be very interesting. So now we have 5 people who have been arrested, but we have 23 people from these chats that they are still apparently looking for. These are the pictures of Brian Roma and Michael Allen Thomas. I believe that this is Brian Roma right here, and this is Michael Allen Thomas right here. And it may be either or, because they list Roa first. Now, this has got to be Roa. Based on that last name, that's got to be Roa right there. All right, so they were arrested in Nebraska and California. And this is Daniel Eskridge right here. All right, so Daniel Eskridge, apparently from his social media profiles, he was obsessed with Hitler, Israel, and Epstein. and he called himself publicly a Christian nationalist vanguard warrior. This is from his booking photo right there. And this is a particularly interesting thread. So SK Double Dub on X. She writes that the attacker's wife, Daniel Eskridge's wife, knew about this plot and his communications. Court documents reveal Eskridge's wife knew of his communications and knew that he had moved all of his tactical equipment from the residence and took it to his parents' house due to a recent CPS call involving a domestic situation with his stepson. So he was preparing to turn his home into a safe house, including a hiding spot under the floorboards in an outbuilding. And they were discussing hitting a military ordnance plant close by to obtain materials for the explosive charges for the drones. And specifically, that was Parsons, Kansas Assembly Facility. If anybody here is in that area and you know about this, pretty interesting. All right, so who is Daniel Eskridge? He went by the name Fulcrum in the chats. According to screenshots of chat messages contained in court documents filed in Nebraska, Daniel Eskridge, 32, of Kidder, Missouri, married with 5 kids, current union carpenter foreman, previously union boilermaker, welder, rigger foreman, high-angle rescue team. He was currently employed building commercial and government buildings and previously worked in energy generation field building and maintaining all of the many different types of power plants and substations. This is likely why power plants and substations were noted as potential targets. He had the experience with these. He lives in the country on 6 acres and has got 25 acres that is mostly timber and secluded. This is a message from those chats where he goes into a list about, himself, his background, what he has, what his kit is going to look like, what he suggests other people get. And also essentially suggesting that they start planning and getting into some type of tactical training as soon as possible. So Eskridge wanted to add more fuel to the fire to show our fellow Americans that the time has come to stand up and reclaim that power. The goal stated by Eskridge for the group conspiring to attack UFC with the intent to take out high-value targets of wealthy people and politicians, including the president, vice president, several senators, and members of Congress listed on an AIPAC tracking site. Our goal is to, in a general sense, restore the old republic. Our constitutional republic has been stolen by corporations, politicians, and foreign actors that have usurped the power from the people and concentrated it at the top, that we now live in late-stage democracy. He's not totally off base, but obviously doing it this way is not the way to go. When I say restore the old republic, he writes, I am not talking about all of the flaws that we had in past times, but merely talking about the fact that in a constitutional republic, the people truly hold the power, and that's what we intend to restore. To get there, this country needs more fuel on the fire to show our fellow Americans that the time has come to stand up and reclaim that power. Once again, from a message by him. Eskridge talked about corruption and being at a trigger point. To set this off, we need an event or events that cause people to realize the revolution has officially begun. Eskridge continued to talk about a corrupt system and how individuals in the group should put differences aside because they have all been victims of the system in one way or another. Eskridge then went on to state that the revolution will not be televised and this movement needs a group like ours. He also stated, right now in the historical timeline, I believe we are at the trigger event point, meaning to set this off, we need an event or events that cause people to realize the revolution has officially begun. He also discussed how 3 companies owned everything and how specific executives at large U.S. corporations were involved. Then advised that if a person was to be a target of an event, we need to make sure it's someone that can't be easily turned into a right versus left thing. We want someone both sides would celebrate. Then stated another prominent business executive is a very good target. He fits the bill for someone both sides would cheer and support us for taking out. At the same time, he mentioned taking out another prominent business executive. Of course, those people are not named. They've been redacted from the record. And we saw the pictures of his stuff, his wife knowing. This is the part that's interesting. So they interviewed his wife after the execution of the warrants. During the interview, she stated Eskridge told her that he was a recruiter for the group. She was aware of his online communications on the Signal messaging application because she saw the messages pop up on a shared tablet connected to the application. She also indicated that Eskridge purchased a large amount of tactical equipment over the past few months. He bought a $700 rifle and painted it, as well as a large amount of ammunition. He also built a firearms range on their property approximately 3 weeks ago. Getting started a little late, aren't you, Danny? And he removed everything from the house because of CPS. On June 7th, he stated, I was thinking co-conspirator 1 and I are the ones that lead the operators group. Co-conspirator 1 is doing night op training right now. He had mentioned that we have many explosives taken care of along with his drone purchase, just making sure I understood him right, that I don't need to keep looking for a cook. Another member of the group stated that he knew how to build drones connected via fiber optic cable and capable of carrying explosive charges, but did not have access to the materials needed for explosive charges. That member suggested they may need to hit an MIC facility for the things we need. 10-4, I'm liking the sound of this. The group continued to discuss the benefits and detriments of obtaining a cook for explosive charges versus stealing military ordnance from a manufacturing plant. The group member who suggested hitting that military ordnance manufacturing facility forwarded a list of 4 ammunition plants, including Parsons, Kansas Assembly Facility, located in Parsons, Kansas, and suggested the location was the most viable. All right. And that will be all. So, yeah, I know all of this seems like unbelievable that people would be like even at a point where they would think that something like this could be realistic. But I would like to remind everybody that in the 1970s, the Weather Underground, a group of communists that ended up getting into the highest levels of power inside the United States government, also mentored a future president who just so happens to be a CIA plant. They set off a series of bombs all across the United States. I mean, they were preaching the same type of revolutionary talk, and that was, 50 years ago. So this is not totally unheard of that something like this would happen, or that people would believe they could get away with it. But it is wild, to say the least. All right. Now, before we continue, I do have a brief message from our friends over here on Rumble. Let me take just take a moment to ask you guys to please hit that like button. I would sincerely appreciate it. All right, guys, let me tell you just a little something. Have you ever noticed how a guy will drop $2,000 on a rifle and then he will bolt the cheapest sight on that he can find on top of it? It's like driving a Ferrari with bicycle tires. But this is something not a lot of people say out loud. But you also don't need a $1,000 optic to shoot well. Most of us will never be in a position to need that. But this is exactly why I like the MCG Tactical Combat Stinger. I got to be straight with you. This isn't the most expensive optic that's on the shelf, and it's not pretending to be, but it does the things you actually need it to do. You can get quick on target, clean sight picture. It's dead simple to run. You bring it up, you're on, you send it. For range days, home defense training, it just works, and that's really the only thing that you need. And, of course, after enough rounds behind one, that's all you're going to be asking for. So here's where it gets good. The premium names sit up somewhere around $600-700, but the Stinger, it's built to serious standards and it's priced way more reasonably. And right now, for people watching this show, MCG is actually going to stack another 67% off, and they're also going to give you free shipping when you order it. That's not too good to be true. It's just a fair sight at a genuinely fair price. It's the kind of deal that makes you perhaps feel a little bit smug for being able to grab it. So you can use that QR code on screen, or you can hit the link, which is mcgtac.com/redpill. You might want to move quick because with the price this low and with stock already running fast, that is your green light. You don't want to overpay. You don't want to get outsold, so you might want to pick it up before they're gone. You're not only getting a solid optic for the money, you are getting a deal you simply cannot pass up. It's an easy call. Thank you very much to MCG Tech, and thank you very much to Rumble as well. Okay, let us continue. All right, so yesterday, after the announcement of the Antifa the Antifa indictments in Minnesota and their subsequent arraignments earlier today, quite literally all hell broke loose outside of the federal courthouse in St. Paul, Minnesota. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the video. Essentially, with that federal indictment being unsealed and these people being brought in to be arraigned, the Antifa showed up en masse, and you can see here that federal officials were forced to deploy smoke grenades and, of course, pepper spray and all of it.
Fuck you! You fucking fascists! Fuck you!
So they just pull those people off the door and they don't arrest them. I don't know why they didn't pull them inside and arrest them. You've got a chain of morons.
Fuck you! Fuck you! You fucking fascist Nazi fucks!
So I've actually got a different angle of this. It's actually much closer to the door, so you can see just how quickly this can get really, really bad. And I have to say, I mean, these morons are honestly very lucky that they weren't getting their arms broken by Kubitons. I mean, I've said this before. I think that the federal officers need to be a lot more intense with the response that they're giving to these people.
We'll never be defeated! The people united! We'll never be defeated!
So first of all, you got that girl back there holding the door. He's trying to clear the area, and he's got the smoke grenade, but with the door being open, of course, they try to kick it right back inside. I don't think the grenade actually ever goes off. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So you got one little girl and one spindly armed vegan holding the door from the outside, and like all three of these grown men can't pull it in. That's like the mechanical advantage that those two on the other side have. Oh, and look at that. He's got a Marlboro Reds mag holder. That's pretty wicked. And again, Schadenfreude, it's just so satisfying to see them covered in that orange fluid. So yeah, needless to say, they were not happy. Now, yesterday we talked about the counter, I guess, press conference that the various elements of the local Antifa had put on, including that Nakia woman who had led the raid on the church. Well, at that event yesterday, this guy right here, Dan Trockley, he's an 8th grade teacher and a union member in Minneapolis public schools. And I would imagine he's probably a communist, and he is most likely a member of one of these Antifa groups as well, because he calls the people who were indicted his comrades.
My name is Dan. I teach 8th grade. I'm a friend to one of the people who was arrested today, and a member of MFE, a comrade to most of the others who were arrested as well. We live in a topsy-turvy world. A world where the people at the top who are guilty of the most heinous crimes somehow get away with it. And then teachers who took care of kids when the federal government descended upon our city to round up people like common criminals as if they were done something wrong besides wanting to come to this country and make a...
Well, okay, they wanted to come to this country. They could have done it a legal way. They didn't have to come here illegally. The people who were rounded up were illegal aliens. They were not legally statused to be here in the United States. They do not have a right to come to the United States and do it illegally.
Better life for themselves. We took time to make sure that those families were taken care of.
So is he admitting to harboring illegal aliens? Because that's what it sounds like to me. And again, I would like for the federal agents to be more forceful in their enforcement. I would love to see more physical force being used because these people are really pushing the envelope. And I would also like to see the U.S. attorneys use a little bit more creativity so that we can perhaps charge somebody like this for harboring an illegal alien. Why not charge all those teachers who harbored these illegal aliens and hid these kids to make sure that ICE wasn't going to be able to come in and arrest them and their parents and get them the hell out of this country?
They were safe, that their children got whatever education we can make happen under that duress. And this is what we get for it. We did what we could to stand up for our friends and neighbors, and we get arrested and thrown to jail for it, all to protect a pedophile in the White House. And that has to stop.
Wrong.
Just know this, federal government, we're not going to rest until our comrades are out of this safe and sound, until that man is out on his ass.
Okay, I want you to remember that specific statement. And I also want you to compare the actions of those who thought that the only recourse they had was to attack the UFC 250 event, and these people right here. You've got opposing viewpoints and ideologies, but also similar beliefs about the structure of the system, and I would suggest similar viewpoints on how best to address that. That's the reason that I don't think the UFC 250 bust is wholly fanciful, that it's something that would never actually happen. I mean, again, look at what the Antifa did at the ICE facility in Texas. I mean, they surrounded it. They tried to take it over like it was the fucking Alamo, pardon my language. Now, also, I want to address the idea of these people being paid. Just because people are being paid doesn't mean that they are not true believers. I think that ultimately, those are the best people that you could have to pay. People who truly believe in the ideology of what you're pushing, who also don't want to work anywhere else, who don't even believe in the system, and who are more than willing to accept a paycheck just to behave in the way that we see these people behave all the time. Now, Data Republican took the indictments of all of those 15 people that were indicted yesterday, and she wrote this interesting article laying out exactly what a day in the life of these people look like. She says, a day in the life of someone who doesn't know he's a paid protester. Now, that's the only thing that I would take issue with in the way she characterizes this. But that's how one Minneapolis defendant described spending an afternoon in a parking ramp photographing license plates for a searchable ICE vehicle database. He used the word job, but he didn't appear to notice. Now, if these people were being paid for their protesting and for their activities, that doesn't mean that they're going to be honest when they describe the nature of their activities to federal officials. The 94-page federal indictment that was released yesterday, 15 members of Direct Action Minnesota with conspiracy to were charged with conspiracy to impede federal officers. It was built almost entirely on signal intercepts. Again, that's what those people in the UFC fight were using, and physical surveillance. It's 275 overt acts documenting 6 months of activity in granular detail. So basically, since the operations in Minneapolis-St. Paul until now, they've been watching them this entire time, mapping them, figuring out everything that they're doing. The indictment accidentally is the most detailed, publicly available ethnography of how a decentralized protest network sustains full-time operations. And I think that you may be surprised by the way that this is actually structured. What follows is a composite day reconstructed from the indictment's timestamps, signal messages, surveillance records, cross-referenced against IRS 990 filings. The protagonist is not one person. He is all of them. All right, so we've often wondered, how do these people have the ability to just protest all day? Well, obviously, they are getting compensated for their activities. But it's not like they're picking up a paycheck every single week. It's not like, they're on the payroll of the Soros Foundation or the Tides Foundation. But in this article, If you're talking about their living situation, she says that this fictional paid protester wakes up in Powderhorn. This is a location there in the area. You've got a shared house with cheap rent. The neighborhood has over a dozen mutual aid rent funds, which means these are funds that are set up just to pay the rent of these people, these ideological true believers who are the ones acting as your paid protesters. A church pastor told The Ringer in February, The Ringer is a publication, that we have not had to say no to a single rent payment. Those churches aren't freelancing. Two religious organizing networks, Isaiah and Faith in Minnesota, collectively hold seven-figure funding from the Tides Foundation and multiple Arabella Advisor pass-through entities. They control an uncounted number of kitchens, basements, meeting rooms, and parking lots across the Twin Cities. Now, this fictional person, she says he doesn't know any of this. All he knows is that his rent is covered because, of course, he's a communist. He thinks, oh, you know, we're just living in a group home and everything gets taken care of for us. Does he know exactly where the money is coming from? You know, maybe not, but it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. Here he is getting communal food. Breakfast is free. A volunteer ran a personal hot food station across the street from the Whipple Federal Building for 12 consecutive days. Community members brought hot dogs and pizza, hot chocolate, and sambusas. This is per the Minnesota Reformer. Church food shelves that used to do 12 deliveries a week shifted to 12 a day. Worker centers in Cedar Riverside, the neighborhood where one of the defendants lives, holds six-figure grants designated for food justice. Here you got another church. The only thing they do is feed these people so that they can engage in full-time paid protesting. He experiences this as a community. Neighbors feed neighbors. Here's his shift, his work, photographing license plates. By 10 a.m., he's at the Whipple Federal Building. A text from January 18th on a weekday. Are you still planning on coming by this morning? Ike and I are hanging out here waiting for you. This is the shift. He sits in a parking ramp with a phone and he photographs every ICE vehicle entering and leaving the Federal Building. Every plate goes into a searchable database called Defrost. Active plates for the day go into hot dishes, refreshed nightly. Real-time sightings go into Whipple plates. Over 6 months, the database grew into a comprehensive intelligence archive. We maintain a searchable database, one defendant told an audience in Seattle. He described spending all day doing boring and unglamorous and unsexy work. Another at a virtual TCDA meeting called it the most boring job I've ever had in my entire effing life. If this were contract intelligence work, it would cost 6 figures annually, but they are doing it for free. Or rather, he can afford to do it for free because he lives in a neighborhood where rent, food, legal defense, and medical care are already provided by institutions funded at scale through the 501c3 nonprofit network. Now, when an ICE vehicle leaves Whipple, commuters in personal cars, they pick up the tail. A co-pilot rides shotgun handling comms. When the vehicle crosses his own boundary, a relay picks it up. One defendant followed a government Dodge Charger up Hiawatha Avenue until it turned its lights on and floored it. An anti-capitalist medic distributes gas cards so the drivers don't have to burn through their own money. Those gas cards are, of course, paid for with those grants. He thinks of the gas card as solidarity. He doesn't notice that the drivers, himself included, are available for hours of pursuit on a weekday afternoon because none of them have anywhere else to be. Manufacturing. Around noon, if nothing's active, he might be at a warehouse up north building shields. One defendant sourced 55-gallon drum lids from a scrapyard. A friend came up from Chicago specifically to help with carpentry. Over the winter, they built over 100 shields from scrap metal, plywood, and barrel lids. A January action required a rented U-Haul, a trailer purchased off Facebook Marketplace, and a second U-Haul trailer, all arranged in a single morning. First pickup at 7:01 a.m. on a weekday. Multiple vehicles were destroyed in a single action. The cost tolerance is notable. He thinks of this as mutual aid because people building things together, that's community. And then meeting spaces. The meeting spaces rotate. They don't have like a central hub. They go to someone's living room. Then they meet at a library. Then they go to a warehouse that's booked through a friend. Then there's the United Labor Center, a labor federation building used by CWA, SEIU, and AFSCME. The organization held a planning meeting there on February 15th because one of its members is, according to public records, the sitting president of CWA Local 7250, an anarchist affinity group holding operational meetings in a union hall because a comrade has the keys. He sees resourcefulness. They find spaces and make it work. At a February meeting, one defendant introduced himself, saying, "I've more or less traveled around the country doing various types of struggles since I was 15. He described the Minneapolis resistance as emerging directly from the George Floyd uprising. Mutual aid networks that never demobilized. Another said the neighborhood defense structures from 2020 have a lot more potential than they've ever been used for. They are right about the origin. Everything, the patrol networks, the signal architecture, the medical training, the meeting spaces, all of this was built in 2020, and it was never shut down. And the lights have been kept on for 6 years by foundation grants. At the end of the day, you got to do the math. He has access to 3 searchable databases, a pursuit network reaching thousands, over 100 shields, trained medics, legal observers, gas cards, meeting spaces in a union hall, a welcome center with 7-figure institutional funding where he eats communal meals for 7 days straight, food from church kitchens, funded by national foundations, training codified by Crime Think and exported to 24 cities through a national speaking tour, and an interstate supply pipeline that shipped gas masks and shields to Newark on request. The direct operational cash documented across the indictments, fundraising records, and coalition budgets is only somewhere around $16,000. But the institutional ecosystem that he operates inside is visible via IRS 990 data, and that is at 8 figures. The Minnesota Freedom Fund, they raised $35 million during George Floyd, and they routed $350,000 to the Alliance for Global Justice. That's one of the 11 organizations referred by the House Ways and Means Committee for IRS investigation because of their alleged abuse of their 501c3 status, because they are funding protest activity. Take Action Minnesota. They are funded by Rihanna's Clara Lionel Foundation at $1.5 million. That $1.5 million is specifically designated to support the work of Black Visions collectives, whatever the hell that means. And the grants go downstream to organizations that provide the infrastructure that is used for all of these paid protesters. None of the money goes directly to him, but all of it builds the ecosystem that he lives inside. There is a number of unindicted co-conspirators, and in a signal message, he wished that there was an in-person career fair where you could go from booth to booth and listen to all the anarchist, rebellion, and protest plans being made. Instead, he said the current model is like an Amway pyramid selling scheme. Good Lord. Anyways, what I mean to say with this is that the true scope of this network and the various subgroups within this network, I hope is fully visible to people at this point. And when you think about things on an individual basis, individual acts by individual people, thinking small, that makes it nearly impossible for the things we see to be taking place. These are vast networks that are well-funded, that are logistically planned out, and that have been operational for years. They have a major head start over us. Now, here, Cam Higbee, he was the one who presented the information from O'Keefe Media Group yesterday. He was also one of the people who was able to infiltrate the Signal chat groups. And here, he's actually published a screen recording of all of these Signal chats. And also, you've got from the moment that he came in to the time that, it was discovered, all of the people who have been added, the names that have been changed, the messages that have been sent, and it is quite a few. Also, people who are admins, also the names of everybody who's included in this group. It goes on and on and on, and it just goes to show you that there is quite a large network of individuals who are involved in this. Now, he continues here in this thread, I infiltrated Delaney Hall Antifa chats so deep that I became an admin. Rioters who had been arrested were actively mapping out Essex County Jail where they had been detained. I would like for you to remember what they were saying in that the UFC Signal chat. They were talking about breaking these people out of jail once they had been arrested. I think it's entirely possible. And actually, they said in that group that there were people who didn't agree with each other ideologically. Who's to say that there weren't members of Antifa that were part of that group, in addition to just disaffected people who thinks that, the only true path to freedom is to go and kill people and take over the government? I mean, I got to be quite honest with you. I hear people talking like that all the time on both the right and the left. I think that what we are seeing here, although groups that appear to be ideologically misaligned, are also at the same time overlapping in some of the key areas in terms of the behavior and the planning and the logistics. And when we take a look here at this chat from Cam Higbee posting here, they're posting the schematics of the building so that they know exactly what each of the different areas are. Current work in progress map of the jail layout. Please suggest corrections if there's any inaccuracies based on your memories. I'm working on getting the exact schematics and floor plan of the building. We'll share here when I have them. The only reason that I could imagine these people trying to figure all of this out is perhaps to go ahead and stage some sort of a jailbreak or an actual takeover of the facility itself. And he continues here. I infiltrated Delaney Hall, and the effort was led by a person named Gabriel, calling himself Michael, in a group chat dedicated to arrestees. Again, you've got people with real names and then their signal names that they go by, their code names. Here's a photo of Gabriel, which he was stupid enough to share. Let me go ahead. First, this is Gabriel. I think that might be a girl, but I can't tell for certain. But, I mean, if his name is Michael, I don't know. He's got hair like a girl, kind of soft, kind of spindly like a girl. All right, so let's see. I don't know if this is Cam speaking with Gabriel/Michael. Hi. The request you made is very sensitive. We need evidence that you were in contact with CNN. Hi, I am pulling back the claim since people seem very concerned. Give me a sec, then I'll give evidence. Okay, I deleted the message. It seems that people are under the impression that you got arrested. I was. I see. Sorry about that. I haven't slept since getting out of jail and I'm a bit fuzzy. I spoke with other people who were arrested and the reporter, and they both were on board with the idea, but I can see how it was a bad idea. Yes. It's a freelance journalist for Middle East Eye and CNN. I met her before the kettle. Unfortunately, Nazis also pose as activists in order to obtain information. I get it. I seem suspicious. Is there something I can do to ease your concerns? I can reveal my identity to you and confirm it in some way. We would like to see some sort of evidence of correspondence with the reporter. Okay. All right, and this appears to be a message between them. We spoke over a call and texted more. On status quo, you can hear my voice at a certain point in the live stream talking to her. On the Sunday night live stream, if you'd like, I can dig up the timestamp. Yes, please. Okay, I'll dig it up. Give me a minute. This is from when I introduced myself to her on Sunday night, shortly before the kettle, which is where I got her contact info. I'm in the white jacket. She's wearing the hijab in front of me. Timestamp 2:01:57. Oh, no. Gabriel. This is Gabriel talking. I don't know who this message is with. But yeah, Gabriel is the one, Gabriel is the one who is trying to get in with this other person. Then you've got this, what appears to be a picture, which is a screenshot from Instagram or something like that. And it says the name David Weber up at the top. I don't know what that is. My voice isn't super clear, but I love you guys reporting, and so on is me. That's me. Photo I just took of my jacket as proof. I can hear it. Thank you. No problem. No worries. Sorry for causing confusion and panic. Can you add me to the OTG chat, please? Already did. Appreciate it. I like this jacket. I'm talking to Chuck Modiano, who is going to speak at the protest today. He and I were in the same holding cell. Thank you. The prison guards almost snipped it. Had to stop them. Where can I find it? The original plan was for him to talk, to be kind of a mouthpiece for us. So I'm trying to tell him what the new plan is. I'm telling him to hold off for now. But I also think that if he wants to say something, it might be nice to have it on the record today so we can consult him with legal aid, contact jail support, get in touch with a defense attorney. I bought it in a store when I visited Norway in high school, so sadly I don't know. I can check the brand, though. That may help. I went through intake last night, but haven't heard from them yet. Any charges? Rioting and resisting arrest. Seek a defense lawyer. Do not talk to the police. Where do I go if I haven't heard back yet? Okay, that's it. But this person is apparently the one who led it. Here is the entire members list for the chat. All members were made admins, but I was also an admin in every chat coordinating the protests. An individual by the name Amy Oderone, reportedly an ACLU lawyer, was providing jail support, which is a method used to get violent rioters out of jail. Amy would have arrested rioters text other Signal accounts, named things like F-ICE with personal details. These accounts presumably also belong to attorneys or legal advisors who can assist in relieving penalties from the state. Eventually, the FBI began knocking on the doors of arrestees. They went ballistic in the private, vetted chat for people who had been arrested. Oh my effing G, the FBI just showed up at my door. I talked to Ben, the public defender. He said they're doing this to everyone, spreading the word. You do not have to talk to them. If they come to your place, ignore them, don't speak to them. The FBI visited my apartment a few minutes ago. OF, are they hitting everyone in the same day? Are you based in New York? They might be hitting everyone in the city. Has everyone been hit in NYC? On Friday, June 5th, at least 2 comrades arrested by state troopers on 529 at Delaney Hall. They were called by someone who identified themselves as an FBI agent. On Saturday, June 6th, at least one comrade received a phone call followed by a door knock by the FBI. Phone calls and door knocks from law enforcement. If you receive a call from a number you don't know, ask who is this, write down their response, ask the agent, their agency, the agent's name, and their phone number. Tell them you will not answer any questions. A lawyer will contact them. Hang up as soon as you get their name and agency. If it's a door knock, ask for the same info, name, agency, phone number, or ask them to slide a card under the door. Do not open the door. You have a constitutional right to remain silent. Okay. Now, following the FBI door knocks, one individual indicated that he has a large comedy page that he'd use as leverage. Another man said, I don't want to do time. A lesser charge with a fine. I don't want to do time. Ben said that's super unlikely. Also, I haven't mentioned this, but I'm a semi-successful stand-up comedian with 150,000 followers across TikTok and Instagram. More importantly, I'm friends with people with even larger followings. If they actually try to F with us, we can probably raise hell. I think preferably I don't have to do that and the charges are dismissed, which is what I think will happen. Hope so. What's your comedy page? I'll give it a follow. Too bad we don't actually learn who they are. Protesters were highly organized in their tactics. They used expeditionary forces of dozens of people to split police resources, controlling ingress and egress of the area. Magpie says, stopping people with bags and masks at Wilson, Newark cops. If you want to send an expeditionary force of 30 to 50 people, should be enough of a distraction to start letting people in. So we can do school shooter bags. If you're in contact with people who run the hospitality tent, where only people with yellow vests are allowed in and families, can you pass this along to them? Have everyone who's in there vetted chat by 5 or 6 different colors of duct tape, and every morning announce a security color at random in the morning so that all the people who want access to the tent have to wear it on a specific part of their body. That might be a good way to keep people like the undercover journalist who sent a video to Fox News out of the tent for the future. That would have been Cam Higby. The same person who openly discussed tactics above openly discussed OTG vetting tactics with me privately, using the hidden tape to distinguish friend from foe. Oh, man, that's so great. Oh, I love it that they are getting completely exposed. Speaking of completely exposed, remember yesterday from Rutgers, Zenab Tanvir, the professor, who's the, maybe not a professor, imaging director at Rutgers University, who was exposed as being a member of Antifa by O'Keefe Media and the work that Cam Higby was doing there at the Delaney Hall in New Jersey. After the report came out, she completely deleted her LinkedIn profile and she went dark. Not only that, but Rutgers University has actually completely wiped her from their website. This is the first time that Rutgers has made a comment on their director, who is part of a group that performs blockades on the Port of Elizabeth. So before, you could find her listed as faculty, Zanab Tanvir, assistant teaching professor. Now, Rutgers University. Oops, that page cannot be found. I love it. I love it. Continue to expose them. All right. Now, this is where we get into the meat and potatoes of today's story. But before we do, I do have one other brief message from our friends over here on Rumble. You guys, let me ask you once more, please hit that like button, help us out, and share the show. That would be awesome. I'm sure you have heard a lot about crypto. A lot of people have, but there is an important aspect related to crypto that a lot of people miss. Crypto was invented so that you could own and keep control of your own money. After the 2008 financial crisis, they designed Bitcoin as an alternative to banks. Instead of a bank holding onto your money, delaying transfers, limiting access, it allowed you to keep control over your cash. And if you've ever had to wait for a transfer to clear, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, if you fast forward to today, pretty much everybody's heard about crypto, but getting started still feels complicated. And that's why I love and use the Rumble wallet. It takes all the complexity away. It makes it very simple. You can choose what it is you want to work with, whether it's Bitcoin, dollar-backed stablecoins, or even digital gold, which is backed by real gold. It's not complicated to set up. It connects directly to your Rumble account and to MoonPay, so you can use your credit card, debit card, or bank, and then you're up and running in minutes. And of course, once you get it set up, you can even use it to support your favorite creators on Rumble, which is either me or other people that you may watch. And of course, any support is greatly appreciated. Because when you use the Rumble wallet, 100% of your donation goes directly to the person that you're supporting. So if you want to get started now, you can use your phone to scan that QR code on screen or click the link in the description, and then you'll be able to download Rumble Wallet. From there, it takes you through the very easy setup process, and then you're up and running. You tap buy, and you're in the game. And so in just a few minutes, you go from hearing about crypto to actually owning some. Thank you so much to Rumble for supporting the channel. All right. Now, let me say thank you to Sean Joe. Guess the Fed in this group. Which group? Are you talking about the Fed in the pill chat? Do we have a Fed in the pill chat? No thanks, Joe says, good midweek to you both, Lisa and Zach. Thanks as always for your great reporting. And always, again, God bless and be safe. God bless and be safe to you as well. Thank you to Sean Joe for a cookie. Thank you to Darla, who says, sounds like 501c3 abuse. No real churches, but leering centers. Rip-off churches. One Thunder, thank you for the can. Sean Joe, thank you for a cookie, and another can. You, sir, are a Scot and a gentleman. Love you, buddy. Thank you for that. All right. So President Trump, once again proving that he is the only one in control of this chessboard. He is playing 4D chess while the rest of the world is playing checkers. He has completely checkmated the Democrats and the rhinos in Congress. Early this morning, he announced that the Senate hearing for Jay Clayton to become the Director of National Intelligence, which was scheduled for today, would in fact be canceled, and that Federal Housing Finance Authority or Agency Director Bill Pulte is going to remain as the acting Director of National Intelligence. Remember, the Democrats and Republicans, both, rhinos and deep state, all of them, are so very concerned about Bill Pulte being the acting Director of National Intelligence. They have done just about everything they could to stop him from getting into that position. I think that they are worried not only about the election report, which is supposed to come out, before Tulsi Gabbard leaves, which is scheduled for Friday. I'm hoping that by Friday, we're going to have some major announcement coming from the DNI, maybe with Tulsi Gabbard and Bill Pulte standing next to each other. But there is also the ongoing debate about FISA, Section 702. The intelligence community obviously uses this for warrantless wiretapping surveillance for national security threats, but they also do it on innocent Americans. This is exactly what the deep state used to spy on President Trump and all of the people in his orbit. And President Trump has repeatedly said that FISA is so important. And as I have stated before, he can't just come out and say FISA is what they used to spy on me. It's not good. We need to do something else about it. He has stated repeatedly that FISA needs to be reauthorized so that they can use it. However, the Democrats attempted to use FISA as a roadblock to keep Bill Pulte out, and President Trump has completely flipped the script. Let me actually read for you the text of his Truth Social statement. So they made a deal to get Jay Clayton in as the director of national intelligence as quickly as they possibly could, keeping in mind that the Republicans in the Senate still have like hundreds of Trump appointees that they have never even considered. They are so worthless in the Senate. You know, they say that the Republicans control the Senate, but it's not the people. It's not the people that we voted for that control the Senate. Not at all. So the Republicans agreed with Democrats to remove very fair and talented William Pulte from serving as acting DNI in return for getting FISA approved by the Democrats. However, the Republicans moved so fast with the hearings of the great Jay Clayton, currently the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, that Pulte would be gone before the Democrats would vote on FISA, which would mean that they wouldn't have to do anything. And it's exactly why the Democrats are now saying that they will vote against FISA. So then Republicans wound up having fulfilled their commitment, but the Democrats broke their end of the bargain. In addition, the newly nominated U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York to replace Jay Clayton, Jamie McDonald, must be confirmed and blue-slipped. And because of the ridiculous views of Republicans on blue-slipping, Democrats are often willing to nix it, and in this instance, they could. I may not be able to get the extraordinary Sullivan and Cromwell partner Jamie approved. And I don't want to take Jay Clayton away from the great job he's doing until Jamie is actually in place, which would mean they would need to have the confirmation hearing for Jamie before they do the confirmation hearing for Clayton. Therefore, to add a slight bit of intrigue, but for the good of the nation and the people of the country, I will not approve FISA without the Save America Act going along with it. It's not complicated, actually. The Republicans fell into a trap. Regarding the approval of our great patriot Jay Clayton, we are canceling the Senate hearing regarding the DNI today and will not be going forward until Jamie McDonald is approved to be U.S. Attorney. In the meantime, Bill Pulte will remain as the acting director of national intelligence. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Trump, Zach, you always blame Israel with no proof. I don't always blame Israel with no proof. I'm only talking about Israel when it is relevant to talk about Israel. But I also talk about a whole bunch of other things. Israel is just a subject that is highly relevant right now because the messaging about it is being spun up because of what's happening in Iran. All right. Now, so when it comes to this situation, President Trump has laid a trap for them. All right. The Republicans in the Senate made this deal with the Democrats to have FISA passed and to have Jay Clayton not be to have Jamie McDonald not be blue-slipped. All right. So by them saying that they're just not going to fulfill their end of the bargain because they thought that everything was rolling along and everything was going to be good, President Trump has completely set a trap for them and said, you know what? We're going to cancel Jay Clayton for right now. That will mean that Bill Pulte will remain the acting director of national intelligence until we have somebody else, which means that any damage they are worried about him causing is obviously going to continue. And now he won't reauthorize FISA unless the Save America Act is connected to it. The Republicans in the Senate are very nervous and want FISA to be reauthorized, but they do not want to support they don't want to support the passage of the Save America Act. So this is now an impossible position. And unless they actually want to do what President Trump wants them to do, they are going to be forced to deal with Bill Pulte as the director of national intelligence until they finally get their heads out of their asses and pass the election security and everything else that President Trump is forcing them to do. It's a brilliant maneuver. and it will force them to do something that they absolutely do not want to do. And it is the perfect example of President Trump's 4D chess maneuvering in getting his agenda to be pushed through without these people being fully on board. The blue slip issue that he was worried about with Jamie McDonald as the Southern District of New York, that means that the senators from New York could object to his being appointed. That would be Chuck Schumer. Of course, Chuck Schumer does not want President Trump to be able to choose the person that he wants there. And, of course, Jamie McDonald is doing a great job and has been since he came in. So we don't want to remove him until we get Jamie McDonald in. Or, excuse me, Jay Clayton has been doing a great job. So we don't want Jamie McDonald to be put forward for his nomination until we get everything lined up in a row. It's got to be done in a particular order of operations. And if it doesn't happen in that order of operations, then once again, they just have to live with Bill Pulte. There is a very intentional reason that President Trump wants Bill Pulte to be at the office of the Director of National Intelligence. We don't know exactly what it is yet, but whatever it is, it has the rhinos and the Democrats scared shitless. And this is delicious from my perspective. I am so excited to see what is going to happen in the coming weeks because there is quite literally nothing else that I think has had them more spooked since President Trump came into office again for his second term. So Bill Pulte right now is working directly alongside Tulsi Gabbard. Whatever it was that she was planning to release, Tulsi Gabbard and Bill Pulte are now doing it together. And I can only imagine it has to do with election integrity. If that comes out before they have brought forth the Save America Act to pass, then whatever evidence is included in that may just be enough to force them to get it across the finish line and convince them that they have to do it by nuking the filibuster or even just forcing a vote using the filibuster in the way that it was intended. You know, quite literally, they could bring it to the floor. They could force a debate about it. And people could just talk their way through it until they get to the point where they vote on it and they are just too tired of talking and they're willing to vote for it. But, of course, Thune doesn't want to do that. Thune is more interested in just holding this over President Trump's head. Well, now he's holding all the cards, and he's holding it over everybody else's head, and there is nothing that they can do about it. All right, now, in addition to that, the Democrats are seriously, once again, pushing the messaging that President Trump is looking to steal the election in the November midterms. They have announced an election security task force with the sole intention of stopping President Trump from stealing the elections. Now, this is very similar to that seditious 6 video that came out several months ago. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. Basically, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democratic Senators Raphael Warnock, Mark Warner, Alex Padilla, Dick Durbin, and Adam Schiff are all starring in this video, and they announced the most expansive protective effort for voting and elections that our caucus has ever undertaken. Isn't it hilarious that now they suddenly are caring about the security of American elections? Donald Trump says he doesn't care about the midterms, Warnock says, because he plans on rigging them. They know voters are going to hold him accountable in November. We're standing up for our democracy, and we will defend our free and fair elections. This is why we've launched the most expansive protective effort for voting and elections that our caucus has ever undertaken. Over the next 5 months, our election security task force will be meeting with top experts, planning for every possible threat, and taking nothing for granted. And we will be ready for any attempt for voter suppression. Essentially, they are going to be putting together a legal task force looking to fight for the rights of people who are not citizens of the United States of America to cast ballots in an election that they have no legal right to participate in.
This pocket-sized pressure tool is so powerful, it strips a decade of grime off concrete in 30 seconds.
Donald Trump says...
Okay.
Donald Trump says he doesn't care about the midterms.
Because he plans on rigging them.
They know voters are going to hold him accountable this November.
And they know their only way to win is to cheat.
We're standing up for our democracy, and we will defend our free and fair elections.
This is why we've launched the most expansive protective effort for voting and elections that our caucus has ever undertaken.
Over the next 5 months, our Election Security Task Force will be meeting with top experts, planning for every possible threat, taking nothing for granted.
We will be ready for any attempt for voter suppression, any other bullshit maneuver that Trump and his MAGA friends will use to try to rig our elections.
Elections belong to American voters, not to Donald Trump.
Oh, this is hilarious to me. Absolutely hilarious that the Democrats are suddenly worried about elections getting stolen. Now, Chuck Schumer shared this on X. He said, as Trump gears up to steal the 2026 elections. Now, remember when talking about elections being stolen, when this was tantamount to treason against the United States, where if you supported President Trump and you even suggested that our elections could be meddled with by anyone, whether it was a foreign nation or an illegal alien or dirty voter rolls, like that was the same as you saying that you wanted to commit an act of violence against an elected official as far as these people were concerned. But now they've gone so far as to create this fake election security task force. They're going to be countering his interference efforts and protect free and fair elections. We won't let Trump discount the votes of the American people. Of course, months ago, they put together a strategy to try to prevent Trump from the midterms because he was trying to place federal agents at polling locations, and election fraud investigations were beginning to ramp up. But let me ask you this. For what reason would the Democrats have to not want ICE agents to be present at polling stations? Because ICE and Border Patrol, they only deal with illegal aliens. They're not going to stop American citizens from casting a ballot. I'll tell you what, if they're worried about elections being stolen, they could just pass the Save America Act. But of course, that's not something they're going to be willing to vote on. Senate Democrats are wargaming legal maneuvers and messaging strategies to thwart potential efforts by President Donald Trump or foreign actors to influence the results of the midterms. As we know, foreign actors have attempted to influence the results of elections in the past, namely China. They were exposed right along with a number of others, including Venezuela. We can throw them in as well. Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and 9 other Democrat senators huddled with top party election experts last week to drill responses for a range of extreme scenarios, from federal agents at polling locations to ballot seizures in key battlegrounds to foreign interference operations that they fear could become reality pre- and post-election day. They game planned legal injunctions to bar armed federal agents or armed citizens from voting sites and lawsuits to force the Trump administration to return ballots if they're confiscated in key contests that could decide control of Congress. They also choreographed communication strategies across elected leaders, campaigns, and advocacy groups to combat, quote, misinformation and disinformation designed to sow distrust in the results, according to details of the tabletop exercises. So they were basically wargaming it out exactly the same way as they did with like Event 201. This is very common among these people. Trump has talked about stealing. He's never talked about stealing the election. He has talked about elections having been stolen. He's not talking about violating the election. He's talking about securing our elections and ensuring that illegal aliens, dead people, and people who no longer live in states are not able to have someone cast a ballot in their name or cast a ballot themselves. He isn't perverting the election as they believe he is. He is trying to secure the election. And woe be us. Woe be anyone who believes in free elections, who doesn't take that seriously, Chuck Schumer said in a phone interview this week. We are going to be prepared for anything that he throws at us. Well, once again, just pass the Save America Act, and you won't have anything to worry about. Okay, so I do have a couple of rants over here. First of all, Sabrina, the plane had 4 engines. No sign of them. Looks like a DEW weapon. It's smearing. So weird. Yeah, the whole thing. That's why I said, where is the plane? It looks like it's completely burned up. And the fact that, that the way that they described it, just like banking and then dropping. Yeah, I mean, that's like every engine on one side would have had to have gone out. Let's see. Emerald Dragon says, I'd rather my tax dollars did go to rebuilding a nation rather than another red cent end up in the shitbag politicians' pockets. Hi, Zach. Missed you, big guy. Good to see you, homie. Always a pleasure. Also, Chula Firefly gifted a subscription to Saberdo. Thank you so much. And Principled Enigma. Zach, did you notice that the words they were using are almost exactly the same things Trump said? I did. That was definitely not lost on me. I'm talking about the other 6-member group. You know, the Schiff shit. You can't even create their own content. No, they can't. They are basically backed into a corner. And this is, once again, an example of President Trump's brilliant maneuvering. All right, now, continuing with this conversation, President Trump says he will not reauthorize FISA until the Save America Act is connected to it. What do you guys think the chances are that they're actually going to do it? I think it's close to 0 to nothing. And John Thune went on national TV to make it very clear that he is not willing to do what the president is suggesting. So he appeared on Fox News with Bret Baier and suggested that the rhino contingent of the Senate, which is rather large, if not the majority of them, are single-handedly destroying the Republican trifecta and blocking President Trump's top priority, which is the Save America Act. They say, we've got the White House, we've got the House, we've got the Senate. But Thune, as the leader of the Senate, is doing nothing to deliver on the president's agenda. He won't pass any of the legislation that the president has requested. He continues to stand in the way of anyone else who is trying to further the president's agenda. Again, we still have hundreds of Trump appointments, which are languishing in limbo, which allows for those deep state holdovers to remain in those positions and slow walk the agenda through the executive branch and through the entire federal bureaucracy. President Trump is now demanding the Save America Act be firmly attached to FISA reauthorization. Well, before, Thune was saying that we must get FISA passed. But now he says that if the Save America Act is connected to it, he's just going to tank it.
Now the president is putting another stipulation. He wants his Save America Act, which is a voter ID, although it has other provisions in it, to be attached to FISA. He had a Truth Social saying that the few Democrats, his word, are against FISA with or without Bill Pulte going to DNI as acting. What kind of deal is that? Besides, I'm against FISA if it doesn't come with the Save America Act. Full version, firmly attached to it. What do you say to the president on that?
Well, we've had the vote on the full version twice now. So the full version is 5 components, and it's photo ID, it's registration or citizenship in order to register to vote, no biological boys and girls sports, bans mail-in voting, and it does away with trans surgeries for minors, which I'm for, and a lot of us are. But that only got...
And those 5 things are fairly practical in the Republican caucus.
They are. I mean, those are things that, but we only got 48 votes. We had that vote last week on all 5 components. The only way you can get, obviously get this done is to nuke the legislative filibuster, and that is not something...
Well, but we could do it that way, but we don't have to do it that way. If they use the filibuster as it was intended. First of all, the filibuster should be nuked. Let's just get that out of the way. The Founding Fathers did not create the filibuster. The filibuster came in at a much later date, and it was done for the express reason that it's a lot better for these snakes in Congress if certain types of legislation are not able to get through. The only way you can beat the filibuster is if you have an overwhelming majority in the Senate. You can get things through the House with a slim majority, but in the Senate, because of these so-called rules, which are just made-up things that they put into play, you're not able to get certain things passed that you can pass in the House. And so if they use the filibuster as it was written, then all they have to do is bring it to the floor, they count the votes, and then they debate on the bill. And they continue to debate on the bill until people fall out and they get too tired to keep talking and they agree to vote on it. John Thune has the power to do that as the Speaker of the Senate, or excuse me, as the leader of the Senate. But he doesn't have the will to do it because he's a piece of shit. He's a rhino. He's a slime bag. He does not care about America, and he certainly doesn't care about the president's agenda.
And that we have anywhere close to the votes to do. So we've had votes. We had it on the floor. It was the pending business in the Senate for a couple of weeks. We've done everything we can to date. We'll continue to put the Democrats on record. The Democrats
are voting against an issue that 80 to 85% of the American people are for.
And they don't care that 80 to 85% of the people want all of these common sense things to be put on the books. They don't care. And they don't care that they're exposed about it. They don't care about going on the record. They have absolutely no worries about it. Because people who vote Democrat, well, first of all, as long as none of these things are real and legal and part of the record, then they can just cheat their way into elections from now until eternity. So, number one, it doesn't matter what the people believe, because as long as you've got dirty voter rolls, you can find the votes, you can find the ballots, and you can put anybody you want into office. But even if that weren't the case, Democrats would still rally behind Democrats. They would say, well, it's better than a Republican. It's better than somebody who supports Donald Trump. I will swallow my puke and I will vote for this person, even if I think they're dirty. That's exactly how it is.
And we need to hold them accountable for that.
But the president doesn't seem to understand your math.
Yeah, and I get that. And he's very
on conversations with him.
No, he understands it. He also just knows that if John Thune was a leader, he would be able to make this happen.
Yeah.
How does this go over? Because the way he types it in his True Social post, it's pretty aggressive. He thinks you should be doing more.
And he's passionate about it, and we are doing everything that we can.
You're taking vacations. You're taking short work days. You're not doing everything you can.
But it is a function of math. I mean, we are bound by arithmetic in the United States Senate.
They are bound by arbitrary rules that could be changed at any time. This is not like written in stone. The rules of the Senate were not handed from God to a representative on the Senate on Mount Sinai. These are not written in golden tablets. No, this is on paper. These are rules made by men that could be just as easily changed to make different rules.
Votes currently aren't there. We will continue to put the Democrats on the record and insist on votes on this. But if you tried to attach it, for example, to FISA, it would tank FISA. And so,
okay,
we will
go ahead, tank FISA. Who cares? If you don't think that the government, through Space Force or any other intelligence agency, doesn't already have the ability to listen in on everything that every other person in the world is already saying, thinking, feeling, doing at any moment of any day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, who cares? Okay, but FISA, the one thing we know is that it is 100% being used and has been used over and over again in a secret sense to spy on American citizens. It is a violation of our constitutional rights. So tank FISA. Who cares? Bill Pulte stays the DNI. I think that's exactly what President Trump wants.
Move, once we get Clayton done, we'll move to FISA, try to get again, the Democrat coalition back together so we can actually pass that and put it on the president's desk. But, and we will look for votes, additional opportunities to get votes on the SAVE Act.
What about housing? You've got a deal, potentially a bipartisan, bicameral bill on housing. And there are going to be people, including the president probably, who say, put Save America on that.
Well, I think he has said that. I don't think there's a bill that's come in front of us that he hasn't said that on. The housing bill, carefully negotiated, what we call four corners, bipartisan, bicameral, Democrats and Republicans in the House and the Senate. It is an issue that directly gets at the heart of the affordability question for a lot of Americans. It creates additional supply of housing in this country, makes housing more affordable. And so
let me also just say that the housing issue that we have in the country is really an immigration issue. I'll show you some figures on that in a minute. But we don't have a problem with supply in this country. If you look at the number of houses that are for sale down here in Florida, you'll see that there's a glut of supply on the market. And the same is true in many other areas. And the more aliens that we get out of the United States of America, the more opportunity we have for Americans to move into homes, apartments, condos, all manner of properties. There is ample places for people to live. So I don't know exactly what the circumstances surrounding this housing bill are. You can make it more affordable, do whatever you need to do to make it easier for people to get into places, but don't piss on my head and tell me that it's raining and say that we don't have enough places for people to live. There are ample opportunities for people to move into these places. They just have illegals living in them.
I'm hoping that's something, too, that we can complete, get on the president's desk, get signed into law, and that he will do that without making additional demands that on some of these bills he has been.
You know what else John Thune could do? He could show up in the middle of the night with like 10 people that are amicable to passing the Save America Act, call a special session, call a vote, and then just pass it and force it through. Because we've seen them do that with other bills that were not even particularly popular. So it's entirely possible. Thune just does not, he either doesn't have the imagination that is needed for a position such as this, or he knows exactly what he's doing and he's a total traitor. I think that it's probably the latter.
How much do you think it hurts in the MAGA base as you head into November that you can't get that done to save?
Well, John Thune's not running in November, so John Thune doesn't care. If this was an election year for John Thune, he may be acting a little bit differently.
Well, I mean, I think, again, you have to, again, it's a pure function of math, and I'm sympathetic to it. I'm for it. I voted for all that stuff. Most of my colleagues and Republican colleagues in the Senate are. We haven't gotten the Democrats have block voted against it. They haven't gotten a single Democrat vote, and that's where I think you make this a campaign issue and you go after Democrats. I don't think it's helpful to go after Republicans to try and get us to do something. People now know we don't have the votes to do, and we've demonstrated that now. We've had 5 votes on this.
Have more votes. Continue to try to get it passed. You're a weakling. You are an absolutely weak-kneed sissy. Thank you very much to Sean Joe for the cookie. Thank you to Empress for 4 cookies. Appreciate you. Thank you very much. All right, now, good news from Harmeet Dillon. A federal judge presiding over the election integrity lawsuit in Georgia has just recused herself for perceived support of District Attorney Fani Willis's position on election integrity. This judge could not be impartial, and so she was asked to recuse herself. Now, in her own order, District Court Judge Eleanor Ross recused herself based on a finding made in a report that an unnamed judge, since identified as her, attended a partisan political event that was hosted by a district attorney's campaign. Of course, that district attorney was Fani Willis. That report concluded that the private mixer was part of a larger function that was undoubtedly partisan and political in nature, despite the judge attending solely for the purpose of reuniting with her former colleagues. Bullshit. However, given the prosecution of President Donald Trump, which was led by DA Willis, Ross's attendance creates an appearance of bias in this proceeding, and that is all that is needed for a judge to be recused. They have the ultimate burden of removing any appearance of impropriety, just as Fani Willis had that same burden in her prosecution of President Trump. The court must always be as impartial as possible, although that's not actually how it works in practice. In theory, that's it. So I'm good to see that this judge has done the right thing. Now, the DOJ, of course, did have to sue her. That lawsuit has now been reassigned to U.S. District Judge Victoria Calvert. The case is just one of a number of ongoing cases brought by the Department of Justice seeking access to voter rolls in at least 30 states where we hope to conduct audits of voter eligibility. So far, we've had 8 cases that have been dismissed, but each of those has already been appealed to their respective appellate courts, so none of them are dead. Those states include Arizona, Oregon, and California in the 9th Circuit, Maine, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts in the 1st Circuit, and Michigan in the 6th Circuit, Wisconsin in the 7th Circuit. The states where the cases remain open at the district level are Colorado, Connecticut, D.C., Delaware, Georgia, in both the middle and northern districts, Hawaii, Idaho, Illinois, Kentucky, Maryland, Minnesota, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Utah, Vermont, Virginia, Washington, and West Virginia. Now, Judge Ross was under scrutiny over as well for a sexual relationship with a police commander in her chambers. This is the same judge that we spoke about earlier this week who was clapping cheeks with the police officer from Atlanta. If you'll remember, not only was she creating a hostile work environment for her employees because of her disgusting behavior in a public building. But she obviously also is a partisan political hack. Now, she is currently, of course, under articles of impeachment by Representative Clay Fuller. And, of course, as we learn more about that, we will let you know. Glad to see her go. Also, I have some good news for you coming out of Colorado. Peter Bernegger has announced a lawsuit against Colorado Secretary of State Jenna Griswold. This is a new civil suit which discusses how Jenna Griswold rigged a HAVA hearing. She also filed false election documents with the feds, and she unlawfully took federal election grants. Of course, she's also smurfing, as most Democrats are. And she is also criminally laundering money into her campaigns, both for her past Secretary of State campaigns and now for her run to be Colorado State Attorney General. In the criminal complaint, you can read all of this. There are fresh court wins in Wisconsin, Washington, D.C., Missouri, and soon coming as well in Hawaii. These are all for HAVA cases. Full-blown criminal investigation is currently ongoing regarding the 2020 election by the officials in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, by the FBI. Of course, Los Angeles just held a election there, and U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley, DOJ, FBI is investigating a whole host of election-related activities there. And there is a HAVA hearing that is set for July 2nd in Michigan. I just want to give a big shout out to Peter Bernegger for the work that he's been doing over the last couple of years, specifically related to this, working with a number of other election integrity groups that we have spoken to here on the show before. But Peter Bernegger is a special kind of autist. That man has his work cut out for him, and he is definitely a warrior. Now, here is something interesting. A Los Angeles gerrymandering scandal. Apparently, LA Democrats held a private meeting that was secretly recorded. In this private meeting, they discussed a once-a-decade redistricting process for the LA City Council and their districts, and they discussed strategies they could use to redraw district lines to expand Latino political power. They specifically wanted to eliminate white and black people's voting power. Every person, as you might imagine, in this conversation is a Democrat. You've got Nury Martinez, who at that time was the city council president, Gil Cedillo, who was a council member, Kevin De Leon, who was a council member, and Ron Herrera, who was the president of the LA Foundation, the LA County Federation of Labor. So the secret recording shows them mocking white city council member Mike Bonin's young black adopted son. They made remarks about black Angelenos, Jews, Armenians, and a variety of other groups that were not them. And Democrats, if you don't think this is happening nationwide, I've got a bridge in Brooklyn I'd like to sell you. What's hilarious about this is that current LA City Council member and maybe candidate for Los Angeles mayor, Nithya Raman, is actually the one talking about this in this interview. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
The messiest thing I was involved with was actually at LA City Council when there was a very messy leak. These three council members, it was the council president, Nury Martinez, and two other council members, Gil Cedillo and Kevin De Leon, went to the LA County Federation of Labor, which is kind of the headquarters of a lot of the labor unions here, and discussed how they were going to redraw the lines to benefit themselves and to kick out their perceived enemies. I was one of them. And they used terrible language, the most, really offensive, racist language.
This was a real secret meeting, and Democrats wanted to eliminate the voting power of white and black people. The whole point was to counter what they saw as gains for the black community as far as votes go. They have all these Mexicans that pour across the southern border, and they overwhelmingly vote Democrat because they all get over here, they work for cash, they work under the table, and then they sign up for benefits. So this is a huge voting block, and that's what they wanted to do.
Now, of course, it's also one of the reasons that the state of California wants to protect their voting rolls and stop the administration from coming in and clearing these people out. By nature of the way that California handles their benefits and the people that they give IDs to, Illegal aliens have the ability to cast ballots, even if they're not supposed to, whether they're using their own names or the identities of American citizens who no longer live in California or who simply may not be active voters. This is happening often enough, and it is fascinating to watch one racially ethnic group attempting to steal whatever power may be in the hands of other racial ethnic groups and see this so openly being discussed. It's hilarious because they have this opinion or this public narrative that they like to spin, that white people are the only people who could be racist or could be prejudiced or could be, trying to shut other groups of people out. But I see many other racially ethnic groups, in fact, far more often than white people, I see them behaving like crabs in a bucket and trying to take power and wealth and just like any sort of influence out of the hands of any other people. I see it time and time again in all of these other racial and ethnic groups. And if I had to be honest, I would say that it seems like white people predominantly are the most welcoming and racially tolerant people in the entire freaking country. And yet consistently over and over again, we are treated as if we are the worst thing that has ever happened on the face of the earth. And frankly, if it wasn't for white people, many of the wonderful things that people have in society, in the modern world in which we live, if it wasn't for us, much of this wouldn't exist. So let's see what happens with this. I'm not exactly confident that we're going to have any movement on that in California, but this is one of the reasons why it's so vitally important that we get access to those voter rolls so that we can get those illegal aliens and those dead people and those no longer active voters off those voter rolls. Still waiting to see some movement in Los Angeles. Nothing has happened yet. All right. Well, little bit of bad news coming out of D.C., perhaps good news, but the Democrat Socialist D.C. Councilwoman Janice Lewis George has now declared victory in a 7-way primary to replace Mayor Muriel Bowser for the mayor of D.C. Bowser is retiring at the end of her third term in office, and Miss Lewis George delivered a victory speech hours after the polls closed last night where she vowed to stand up to Trump. She said, as mayor, I will work with anyone who makes D.C. safer, but I will also stand up to Trump and anyone who targets our neighbors, meaning illegal aliens. Miss Lewis George held a double-digit lead when counting stopped last night. Ballot counting is expected to continue slowly as D.C. uses ranked choice voting for the first time. If she can maintain her 50% lead, she will win the election outright. There will be no runoff. President Trump threatened last week to invoke the D.C. Home Rule Act if Lewis George won the race. And when he was asked how he would feel if she won her race, he said, I wouldn't like it. Maybe we'll take back Washington, run it on a federal basis. We won't put up with it. We're not going to lose our businesses. So I have to be perfectly honest. I want her to win. I want her to be declared the winner, and I want them to say that a socialist is now the mayor of Washington, D.C., so that President Trump can invoke the Home Rule Act, and invoking those powers under Section 740 of the Home Rule Act, it would effectively immediately federalize Washington, D.C., and it would no longer be in the power of the local D.C. Democrat establishment. So we could see more federal agents on the streets. We could see the National Guard back out on the street. But effectively, the people of Washington, D.C. would no longer even have the ability to vote in local elections because they wouldn't need to be held anymore because D.C. would now be in the hands of the federal government. I think that's exactly how it should be, and I would like to see it. Let me just hear her speak.
Oh, with the way you zero in your optic, I thought you enjoyed.
Okay, please, God, let her win and let President Trump invoke the home rule. I cannot wait for that to happen. All right. Now, also in Oklahoma, a number of President Trump's candidates that he had backed have won. In Georgia and Oklahoma, both Trump-backed candidates won the Republican primary races. Trump-backed Mike Collins is projected to win the Georgia Senate Republican nomination over the man that was endorsed by Governor Kemp. Georgia GOP Representative Mike Collins is expected to win his nomination for Senate in the runoff. And then also Collins over the weekend was expected to be campaigning against the candidate Derek Dooley. Derek Dooley is not going to be advancing. In Oklahoma, Kevin Hern won his primary. Representative Hern has emerged victorious in the Republican primary for the open Senate seat in Oklahoma. This win positions him as the likely successor for former Senator Markwayne Mullin, who is, of course, now the Secretary of Homeland Security. And the upcoming general election is heavily expected to favor Hern because it's not really a Democrat or district and certainly not a competitive district. Now, Mike Collins winning this runoff in Georgia is also a good thing. Remember, President Trump had endorsed Collins as he said, it's a great honor to endorse MAGA Mike Collins, a highly respected congressman who's been with me from the very beginning. This is Georgia is a very special place for me, where we just had a big presidential election win with the most votes received by any single candidate in Georgia's history for any election. Mike is strongly supported by the most highly respected MAGA patriots in Georgia and beyond, and many Republicans in the U.S. House and Senate. He is a warrior and a winner, a very successful businessman, gets into all of his accomplishments, just looks like he's going to be doing a good job pushing forth on President Trump's agenda. John Ossoff is who he is running to replace. Looks like he is probably going to be successful. However, for the Republican candidate for governor, this is where it looks a little suspicious. Now, President Trump has congratulated Rick Jackson, a man running as a Republican who has now won the nomination. But President Trump had endorsed Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones. Now, I don't know much about Burt Jones, and I know we have some patriots from Georgia that are in the chat. From the looks of it, when I was looking at the possible candidates, Burt Jones seemed like an okay candidate, and President Trump had endorsed him. Now, considering the fact that he was the lieutenant governor, he had a higher visibility than Rick Jackson. Rick Jackson's a billionaire healthcare executive, and apparently he paid for his own campaign, and the race was very tight. He was also running against Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, but Brad Raffensperger really wasn't even a contender, barely got any votes in the original primary election. Now, Trump has congratulated Jackson, and he said he won a great campaign, called him smart, and he said he won against a great guy. Rick Jackson ran a great Trump campaign, very smart, was with me on Saturday night making a pitch. Amazing. He won against a great guy, Burt Jones, who has a fantastic future. And then in a follow-up post, Trump signaled support for Jackson to be the next governor. He said, congratulations to Rick Jackson, who very successfully campaigned on being Trump and won. He will be our next governor. Now, the reason I am questioning the results here is because Rick Jackson was a political unknown. Came out of nowhere. He was a third-place contender. He only spent his own money. That's why President Trump is making the comparisons to he and Rick Jackson. But Rick Jackson, shot up in popularity very recently. Maybe not necessarily publicly, but he could have been in a position to be placed there. And one of the things that troubles me about Rick Jackson is that he was a big supporter of Liz Cheney, okay? And he donated money to Liz Cheney during the time that she was going after President Trump and she was on the Unselect Committee. And even after that, he still supported her with financial contributions. So I don't know. I'd love to hear from people in the chat, people from Georgia. Nuke Hayes says, wasn't Burt Jones a better choice? Burt Jones was endorsed by President Trump, but not being a resident of Georgia, and again, not knowing much about Burt Jones, I don't know. However, President Trump said that Rick Jackson came to see him on Saturday, made a pitch for why he's going to be a good governor. Seems like he will likely be the candidate in November because the alternative is somebody who is far, far worse. That's the only thing I can say. All right. Mike Collins won. Truth announced. Yes, Mike Collins won for sure. Okay, so it is where my family is from. Okay, well, yeah, if you want to, if anybody wants to check into this and see what the people of Georgia are thinking about it, I would be really interested to know. All right, now also good news coming out of Nevada. Jim Marchant has come from third place to first place to win the GOP primary for Nevada Secretary of State. Now, why is this notable? Because Jim is an election integrity expert. Now, before the race flipped, the handpicked endorsed choice of Governor Lombardo, Shirley Fulkins Roberts, was predictably in the lead spot. And normally, an endorsement from a governor is a good thing. But the details of Lombardo's alleged cover-up of the October 2017 Las Vegas shooting continues to hang over his head, and people are definitely still thinking about it. It's also important to note that Shirley's views on election fraud are pretty closely aligned with Governor Lombardo, who had considerable controversy when he apparently won the race for governor over attorney Joey Gilbert back in 2022. A lot of people looked at that election and said it was most likely fraudulent. So Shirley's own version of Lombardo's sentiments can be read, but summarized, Fulkins Roberts stands apart by rejecting claims of widespread fraud. She attributes issues to confusion and eroded confidence rather than security flaws. The Secretary of State's office has referred 42 potential violations for prosecution since 2020, but no evidence supports mass irregularities. Well, there's no evidence in a legal sense if nobody will ever look into the evidence. And there has definitely been an attempt by election integrity experts to do that in Nevada, but the Nevada authorities have just refused to look at it. And if you'll remember, when my friend Ed was on the program, and also my friend Robert Beatles, we've talked about this before. Nevada authorities were just essentially told that they had no right to challenge an election or even ask questions about it. That if they failed to certify an election, they would be arrested and they would be charged with a crime. But her rivals have promoted unsubstantiated assertions, the media said. Engel supported efforts to block 2020 certification over fraud allegations and warned last year that such crimes undermine legitimacy. Marchant, who is now the winner, expressed distrust in Nevada results for 2 decades, even questioning outcomes if he prevailed. So one train of thought is that Jim winning the primary is a psyop to give the appearance that there's no such thing as election fraud. After all, with Jim's longtime vocalization of such fraud, this victory effectively silences him from alleging such things again with any real credibility. Or it places him in a position to finally do the investigations that we need and to take a look at the evidence that has already been presented and then fix the problems that are inherent in Nevada's election system. So I think it's less likely that he was allowed to be elected as a psyop. Most likely is the reason that Marchant has long-term name recognition from serving in the Nevada legislature and from running 2 campaigns after he left the legislature. This candidate that was supported by Lombardo, Shirley, didn't really have any notable name recognition, at least not in southern Nevada. So it should also be noted that Engel had significant name recognition even before 2020, but he was also a strong supporter of exposing election fraud. So maybe there's a spot for Engel in the administration after Marchant is elected. Both were great candidates, but Marchant likely had more name recognition and also a longer history of working with others in D.C. regarding the election fraud patterns that he had discovered. What's ironic, however, is that Marchant spent close to $0 on his campaign. But again, he already had significant name recognition all throughout Nevada. People were aware of him. Here's the bottom line, though. However, what will happen with the midterm elections in November? There's no way the deep state would ever consider letting Marchant win over Aguilar, who is the Democrat candidate. So we will get to see a test of the administration's willingness to perhaps fix election security issues from behind, or perhaps do something in regards to the Save America Act, as President Trump has routinely said that we are going to have it on the books and all of these election security issues are going to be taken care of before we actually get there. However, I am definitely going to be watching the elections in November coming up for November. Nevada. Listen, you guys. Potato. Mark Levin, Mark Levine, Mark Lovin, whatever is fucking, I don't care. Listen, just let me talk. I'm going to say it how I say it, and it's just how it is. All right, let me say thank you to number one Indiana Dad. I was just talking about you yesterday, buddy. I'm about an hour behind, but I saw the Iran memorandum. The memorandum of understanding is signed. Nice hearing the shout out yesterday about the Liberty 100% silverware. Yes, awesome. So yes, the memorandum of understanding has been signed digitally, but it's supposed to be signed physically and in person on Friday. And what was the other thing? There is also a fake memorandum of understanding that's going around from CNN. It's why I didn't talk about it is because the administration has already commented to say that what is being reported is not true. Okay. And then Denise Ann says, Frederick Douglass is rolling over in his grave right now after hearing her quote his words. I believe you. Let's see. Just a suggestion from Principled Enigma. Every piece of mail I get from the House of Representatives or the Senate asking for money, I return to them with a statement, no money until you pass the Save America Act. There you go. I always just throw that stuff out either way, but that's not a bad idea. However, it's not going to go back to their offices. It's just going to clog up the post office. G. Fontez says, Thune's daughter is a Democrat consultant and a fundraiser. Where are his loyalties? I am certain they are not with the people or with the president, and they would more likely be with his daughter. All right, now we also have a Coast Guard vet and a former law enforcement officer, Chris Lancia, who is going to be running against that purple-haired weirdo, Rosa DeLauria, in Connecticut this year. Now, for 34 years, Connecticut's 3rd Congressional District has been represented by Rosa DeLauro. She's been in that seat since 1990. Connecticut families have watched their grocery bills skyrocket, their energy costs climb, and their small businesses struggle under the weight of regulations and inflation, as so many of us have. Yet the same career politician keeps going back to Washington over and over and over, and the Democrat machine has made sure that she didn't even face a primary challenger from her own voters this year. Chris, however, is different. He is not a career politician. He's a working-class candidate with real-world experience. He's a veteran who served his country. He's a former law enforcement officer who has kept communities safe. And he is a father who understands what Connecticut families are going through right now. This is his platform. It's pretty straightforward. Lower taxes and fewer regulations to help small businesses thrive, real accountability for wasteful government spending, energy independence to bring down Connecticut's sky-high utility bills, term limits because no one should hold a congressional seat for 34 years, America First policies that put Connecticut families before Washington special interests. Chris has already earned the endorsement of the Connecticut Republican Party, and he's building momentum heading into the August 11th primary and the November general election. And I'm just waiting to see if President Trump is going to support him as well. Connecticut is not heavily represented by Republicans, but maybe it's to the point where Connecticut families are so fed up with business as usual, they might actually vote for somebody else. Who knows? We'll see. All right, very briefly, before we end the show today, a horrific act took place in broad daylight on Jersey City Street. 3 teenagers left a girl with second-degree burns on her face and head. Now, police are refusing to release the names of the suspect. They actually drove by and threw acid on a little girl and 5 women. Take a listen to this. It sounds like a Muslim acid attack, but we don't know for sure because we don't know who actually perpetrated it.
I heard one of the girls screaming, saying it burns, it burns.
Jersey City hazmat crews rushed to Wilkinson Avenue near Ocean Avenue after police say someone threw what's believed to be sulfuric acid on a group of young women, including 3 teenage girls. It happened outside a home around 7:40 Monday night. Amelia Sanchez is bedridden and spoke to us through her window.
All I heard from them was calling each other names and fighting. I was going crazy because I couldn't see nothing. And this is happening on my block. Imagine if my grandkids were sitting out here.
According to investigators, a car pulled up to the group and someone in the vehicle hurled the substance before getting away. Medics took 6 victims to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries.
The people that were hurt, they had the towels on their face and they went into the ambulance.
Authorities say this may have been targeted and stems from a potential dispute between a larger group of people.
We thought it might have just been a fight. You know, it was a lot of commotion on the block the day before with a lot of girls out here, and then yesterday. So we didn't think it would be this bad or escalate like this. You know, we've been living on this block for a long time, and this is one of the most crazy things we've seen.
Residents say first responders could be seen washing down surfaces, sparking concern in the community.
What, am I being exposed to anything dangerous out here? You know, I have my daughter out here, she's 2 years old.
No one answered the door of the home where neighbors say at least one of the victims lives. Community members are
because they were all probably in the hospital.
Praying for a speedy recovery.
The girls that I've seen living there, they're so sweet. You know, they're good girls, so I hope everything's okay with them.
You know, acid attacks were never anything that you saw in the United States until we had these people moving in. Now, also, I would like to play this video from a young black woman discussing her disgust with the black community supporting Carmelo Anthony and the insanity that is surrounding this, specifically related to the lack of black jurors on the case.
So I know I'm about to receive a lot of hate from this. I got Jesus Christ in my life. I really don't care. And I've been trying to hold myself back from speaking on this subject, the Carmelo Anthony case. But I've been online and I've seen a lot of videos, you know, and I'm learning more and more about it. A lot of black people don't understand why there are no black jurors, you know, on the trial. A lot of them don't think deeper than race, you know. So I'm going to explain it to you. The reason why there were no black jurors, well, the reason why I believe, I'm not going to say, oh, I knew everything. No, the reason why, my belief system, okay, is because of the response on the internet from black people about this case, about this situation. A lot of black people actually believe that Carmelo Anthony is not a murderer, that Carmelo Anthony defended himself from a push. A lot of black people believe that what Carmelo Anthony did was right. Let me say something.
Yeah, it's insane to me how many black people on the internet believe that a push from a white person is that a response to a push from a white person, an acceptable response to a push from a white person is to stab them in the heart. I never thought that would be the world we live in.
If the roles were reversed, y'all would want the little white boy dead. If a little white boy stabbed a little black boy at a school track meet, all hell would break loose. Every black parent, every black person would be screaming, life in prison, the death penalty. It
would be like George Floyd 2.0, Trayvon Martin 2.0. They would be in the streets. They would be rioting. I'm actually surprised that we haven't seen a continued protesting presence. I think that's largely because all of the money has been shifted into the immigration issue, and there simply doesn't exist the funding for this type of thing for the black community like did after George Floyd died.
Would definitely be screaming just racism, racism, racism. This is how I see it. A lot of black people are biased. Y'all showed them, y'all showed by running y'all mouths on the internet like I'm doing now, y'all showed the whole world that no matter what a black person do against a white person, that black person is always right. That's why there were no black people on the jury, because most of us are biased. Most black people are biased. And we see it with the Carmelo Anthony case. Y'all not screaming the same stuff about them little boys who shot up a car with a baby in it. Where are all the outrage for the boys that had the guns? Where's the death penalty outrage for them? Where is it? When it's black on black crime, y'all seem not to care so much about it. It's so weird. We talking about children at a goddamn school track meet. No weapons should have been on the premises, period. Why is this such of a topic of discussion? Y'all literally showed the judge that black people cannot be trusted on this case. And then not only that, Y'all followed the man, the boy's father, Metcalf's father, saying that his son deserved to die. But if the shoe was on the other foot, you are blinded by race if you think Carmelo Anthony was right in anything that he did. So you mean to tell me, you telling your children to defend themselves, to kill people, to stab people, to shoot people, if they mess with you, if they bully you, if they push you, if they try to fight you, just kill them. That's okay. I mean, it's already going on in the black community today. You can literally call somebody a bitch and shots will start ringing off. I've seen it. I'm from Chicago. I've seen a lot of stuff. I've seen boys lose their lives just for simply asking a goddamn question. Oh, where you from? Pop, 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 pop. So no wonder why there were no black jurors. All because y'all wanted the little white boy to die. Y'all wanted him to die. Oh, if you're racist, you deserve to die. That's not right. That's not a right way of thinking, and that's not a godly way of thinking at all. Y'all are looking at somebody that was called a nigger bitch by an old white man. I didn't have the need or the want to take that man's life. This is a sad fucking community. This is a sad fucking generation.
Amen. Yeah, you never hear the outrage about the death, the murder, the tragedy that is the black community today. You only see people looking for an opportunity to cry racism and to get upset and to call for the death or the punching or the murder or the violence against the white community because they have this victim mentality bred in. It's like totally cool, black people killing black people. But as soon as a white person walks into the scene, they're looking for an opportunity just to pop off. All right, now, here is a tragic story about a man, again, who never should have been free, never should have been on the street, attacking a woman. I don't even know what her race is, but it doesn't matter because she was pregnant. Pregnant woman attacked by Paul Hicks, now finally being held in jail without bond. But look at how many times this man was arrested. He was obviously a danger to society.
A Charlotte man is facing multiple charges in connection with an attack on 2 people, including a pregnant woman. This happened outside a Northeast Charlotte restaurant. Paul Hicks faced a judge for the first time today. He's facing 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon and a charge of assault on a pregnant woman. Hicks is being held in jail without bond.
Good. So he stabbed her with a knife. He attacked her with his fists, his feet, his teeth. His name is Paul Abdul Hicks. I don't know his race, his religion, but you can see he appears to be a black man. This happened on Monday. He assaulted a 26-year-old pregnant woman outside a restaurant in Northeast Charlotte. For what? We don't even know. Probably doesn't even matter. He tried to murder her. And then he slashed a man who tried to intervene so badly he had to be rushed to the hospital because he was sliced up all over the place. Anyways, this is the kind of insanity that has been bred in the world today because of these ridiculous, insane people that are running our government and that are steering society. Now, this is the actual quote on housing that I wanted to present to you earlier in the show, and then we're going to go ahead and end it. But a recent Federal Reserve working paper found that unauthorized immigration accounted for roughly 30% of the housing price growth and 20% of rent growth in the average metro area between 2021 and 2024. As that demand eases, so should price pressure. Zillow reports national mortgage costs at their best level since August of 2022, with affordability expected to improve in 49 out of the 50 largest metros by year's end. Final thank yous over here. No Thanks Joe says he could also schedule an actual short, legitimate break time with Mike Johnson in the house, and DJT could have recess appointments, but he never will. This is why every single time they go on recess or they go out of town, they have somebody stay behind so they can do the pro forma sessions, stopping President Trump from ever allowing any single recess appointments. This is how you know, undoubtedly, that he is against the president and against his mission. Nothing else over there on Pilled, nothing on Rumble, and I don't believe we have anything else over here. I got a notification on Cash App, but that could just be something from them. And yes, it appears to be. All right, you guys, that'll be all. I want to thank you for being here. Thank you, Warrior Mima, for gifting these subscriptions. Looks like we got 5 subscriptions gifted to viewers over there on Rumble. Congratulations. Thanks, you guys, for hanging out with us. Please do me a favor. Hit that like button. Hit the thumbs up. Hit whatever it is that shows the algorithm that you enjoyed the show. I would really appreciate it. I'm going to pass out these gold pills, and then hopefully I will see you tomorrow at 5 p.m. for another episode of Red Pill News Live. Until that time, good luck. God bless. Stay safe and stay frosty. We'll see you guys.